Hello and welcome to Fresh Faced Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
Let the night fall when it
fucking-
crumbles. He
I
won't stand tall
despise-
because his back's broken.
You're absolutely right. God damn it. Today we're on Fresh Faced Comics. We're obviously talking about Batman Knightfall. This is the first volume of Batman Knightfall, the paperback edition that you can buy most places for some reason. Because there are different versions of it, I'm just going to very quickly run down what we are covering today. This will be the Vengeance of Bane special, Batman 491 to 500, Detective Comics 659, I can fucking speak, 659 to 666, Showcase 93, 7 to 8, and Shadow of the Bat 16 to 18. This is the start of Knightfall. This is
Yes.
much in the same way that we covered Death of Superman on the podcast. We're doing these all right in a row. The trouble is, there are
This
two
is
big
the
issues.
thing.
There are two big issues with this. First off, Death of Superman paperbacks are split up way more conveniently. So this is going to be covered in a shorter amount of time, but probably overall longer episodes. And
Thank goodness No Man's Land is 4 volumes and not just 3.
And the only other big issue with this is that Knightfall, unlike Death of Superman, kind of sucks. Thankfully, that is not the case for most of this first volume because they actually have some ideas here. So we're gonna we're gonna get into this. Kicking off our non-spoiler section, as always, Jacob, what is Knightfall about?
So, Nightfall is interesting, right? Because it's clear that DC was like, we just killed off Superman. And that made us a lot of money. And we have this writer, Chuck Dixon, who's created this character called Bane, who's going to be they want to do a significant Batman plot with him. What if we can't kill off Batman. Batman's a human. That would be cheap. Never going to kill off Batman until, like, Grant Morrison does it.
And then a couple times after that, too.
Yeah, yes. Until we do. But the 90s, they had surprisingly some dignity. And you know what? It's 1993. I think Image Comics had started. Comics are getting really dark. Like, if you pay attention to what we've done on the podcast so far, we haven't, like, the decade outside of the 2020s, which we're currently in, of, like, the decades for DC that we've covered from post-crisis DC, basically, we've covered the least from the 90s.
Indeed.
Because the 90s are dark.
That is true. And also, I don't know. I think just for what I'm having you read, there are other things I'd much rather prioritize. But yeah, you're right. The 90s in comics were extremely dark, and
we're dark and edgy. And you know what? I'll say it. DC, by the end of it, it seems to have pulled their shit together probably earlier than Marvel, from what I know about Marvel.
Most definitely.
This is definitely not the longest running 90s event that probably went on too long. I'm looking at you, Clone Saga.
This is probably the second longest.
Yes.
But it's right there.
But it's right there. And so they take this idea, like Chuck Dixon and Doug Mensch, or Doug,
Mensch.
Yeah. Is that how you say it?
Okay. That's how I've always said it, at least.
Clearly have an idea of, let's break Batman. Let's break down, let's do some deconstruction stuff with Batman, of, like, let's see him getting tired. Because we've established a new Robin with Tim Drake, and he's very well established by this point. Let's break him down. Let's break him. And let's sort of... it seems like one of them may have had the idea of, let's make a really dark and edgy Batman to take his place. And then we can, bring Batman back, which is a great idea. And the setup, which is all of this volume, is brilliant. There are, like... This isn't a perfect book, but it's a solid 9 out of 10 book that I really enjoy it. There are some problems. There's the occasional issue that I didn't particularly like. Mainly, oddly enough, the Showcase 93 issues are fairly redundant. Joey, I know you didn't love the Shadow of the Bat issues, but I don't know. I
I
really
mean,
liked them.
they're okay. I just don't love them.
I had a fun time with them. Um, and so they tell this story where we have a new villain. It's Bane. He's on the cover, and he's going to break Batman. He's been
Indeed.
created for this event. Um,
And we have never read any Bane on the podcast before, have we?
we have not.
Which
Um,
I only am just now realizing.
well, what's interesting is because Bane's a character, unlike say Doomsday, Bane has more longevity.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah. Even just by the end of this first volume, you can see like how this character can come back.
oh,
Uh,
you can see that by the end of the first issue. Like the
yeah,
character, the character already has
you
an
you could
established
you could tell more
backstory.
stories beyond just the I'm going to go to Gotham and I'm going to break the Bat story. You know, you can do more than that.
Yes. Um, and I think it's just the ideas behind Knightfall from a marketing standpoint are solid. But by the fact that now, like Superman's comics in the 90s, Batman had, like, at least for this first volume, there are 3 dedicated Batman titles being used. And
Indeed, and there was also Legends of the Dark Knight going on at the time, but that was more of an anthology book, so they didn't include that in any of this, at least for
until
now.
until
Uh,
later. And
yeah.
there are reasons it's included in Knight's End, um, because of a different event that they were building up to that they needed to to wrap shit up quick. They needed to. I say they needed to wrap shit up quickly. But this is an event that starts in 1992 with the introduction of Bane as a character.
Mhm.
The event itself starts then mid to late 93, and the entire saga doesn't end until early 95.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, and I think there's more to be said on the publication of this story when we get into episodes 2 and 3 of this 3-part
Especially episode
saga.
2, because
But here I think we just have a really solid story on our hands,
we
and
do.
I'm really excited to get into it.
It's
But
also really well paced. So I, in addition, I'm reading from an Omni, which includes all the extra issues, which we won't discuss, but even the extra issues that they include here, they add quite a bit of build up to the event starting. And though they're mainly standalone, focusing on their own, like focusing on what Bruce Wayne as a character is dealing with. You start the event and he's already fairly worn down as a character,
mhm,
which is a great and interesting starting place. And we're covering what 24 issues basically,
24 issues, yeah.
and outside of for me 2 of those issues, they all fit really nicely, and they all
Mm,
have something fairly necessary to say and to
mm.
do and to explore. Um, with sort because this is also shaking up Gotham City in general, and we're dealing with interesting characters, as well as just a bunch of just the Batman's villains. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Which actually brings me to our first Twitter question for today, which I'm really interested to talk about. Our first one comes from Jamie at Jamie_season 7. He says, "Do you think it could make a good starting point for new readers?" Which is why I'm glad you brought up the villains on display here, because while I don't, I would say answer no to that question. I think clearly the reasoning behind that sort of question, I think, is the sort of sample platter of villains on display here.
yes,
Um,
I can think it's a good second or third comic
yeah,
if
but if you're
if
looking for something to accomplish that same thing, I'd sooner just like aim for like one of the Jeff Loeb or
yeah.
Jeff Loeb Tim Sale books, which
Yeah,
do
but
sort of a
if
similar
you
thing.
specifically want to read like in continuity comics, I would say honestly start with Lonely Place of Dying as before you read this, because
Mm.
Lonely Place of Dying gives you a great baseline for
Well,
who Tim
actually, I mean,
Drake is.
for that matter, considering certain things that happen in this first volume, do that whole deluxe edition with Death in the Family
With Death
and
in the
Lonely
Family,
Place.
which is now that's the only way you can get Death in the Family, even in paperback. I've checked.
Mm,
They basically took the deluxe edition and made it a paperback and tore out some of the interviews set, like some of the bonuses,
mm.
which is kind of a shame. But still, you can get the 2 stories fairly
Yeah,
good
but
in
yeah,
there.
still very smart to have package those two stories together anymore.
Yeah, and
Yeah, overall, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
you get a great idea of where post-crisis Batman has been,
Mhm.
and sort of where he's going.
Yeah.
Um, and I know digitally you can get like the in-between stories as well.
Yeah, with the Cape Crusader and Dark Knight Detective collections.
I
So
wish those collections would stay in print though, because
right, and they're newer collections too. They all have the new DC logo. Like,
yeah,
I do not
like
know why they went out of print so fast, and why they continue to do that every time they release a new volume. It's crazy.
I wish I really wish, because that would be fascinating just to read in order,
Yeah.
just post
Um,
crisis. Um,
Anyway, our next Twitter question comes from Kian at Kian the Quark. Has two tweets. Says, finally, the 90s happened to Batman, and his name is Azrael. Second tweet with a picture of Azrael's Batman suit. I challenge you to find a more 90s design. I mean,
some of the designs in Bloodline in the Bloodlines annual issues
you know what? That's fair. That's
we
fair. If
read
you've never
are
seen, if
more
you've never seen
90s,
the bad guys from Bloodlines, check those out. They are
very
very,
90s.
very, very
But
90s. Yeah.
also on that, I have an interesting comment, because by the end of this volume, Azrael hasn't really become the full 90s self. Like,
Yeah.
by the end of this, he's still a largely sympathetic and fairly interesting character. Um,
That's an interesting take.
well, part of it is also because the extra issues give you a couple of issues with him as almost a focus, and you
Yeah.
can actually kind of see that he at least doesn't start as a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Um, so I mean it's interesting because for a story that's trying to set up Azrael as the character that will take up the mantle when Batman is broken, um, he just takes kind of a backseat for a lot of the main event until it's time for him to take on the mantle, which I always find
yeah.
interesting. And obviously, I'm sure because you read the prelude as well. The prelude does a lot more with that.
The
Um,
prelude gives him a couple of issues where Tim actually trains him, and
yeah.
you actually see him being non-lethal. Because one of the
Hmm.
big things is he's edgy. He's willing to go further than Batman ever was.
Hmm.
That's not really a spoiler. It's just who the character sadly is.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, I think I think it's fascinating that there's so much after this point.
Hmm.
Like, because at the point at the end, you almost, like, there are points in the back half where you almost feel his fall from grace coming. Like,
Hmm.
it explicitly happens. And then Batman 500 ends this collection on a interesting-ish note that I think you could do interesting stuff with. I don't believe they necessarily do interesting stuff with. To be on, although to be fair, because of how big these are, I have started reading Night Quest, though I'm not very far into it. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, it's kind of a shame, but Azrael as a character has potential.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, let's move on to other Twitter questions. Actually, speaking of Azrael, let's move into Sean Franco's at Sean Franco underscore says, who is the Batman that Gotham needs most, and why is it Azrael? Obviously, mostly a jokey thing, but I think there is a larger conversation to be had there. And as to why, and we get again, like I said, we'll get into more of it with Night Quest. Um, but why Azrael Jean Paul Valley thinks that he is needed, why he ends up taking on the city in the way that he does. Larger conversation to be had there next episode, but yeah, there's stuff to talk about there. Anyway, let's see. Kellogg at underscore Kellogg says, "Did Bane ever break Batman's back in other ways?" Um, yes.
yeah, I mean, psychologically, he broke him as well. What's interesting is that the actual breaking of the back is the final thing that breaks. Like, by the time you get there, Bruce is just so tortured and damaged.
Mm,
Like, um, you would not believe.
yeah.
Um,
Let's see. Let's move into our last two for today. We have two questions sent to us through Discord. One of which is from our friend Andrew, who's been on the podcast before. Says, what are your thoughts on Bane as a villain in this event? Do you think the events leading up to the famous scene hurt his credibility as a threat? I'm curious to hear what you think of that, Jacob.
I I don't think they do.
Nor do
Um,
I, personally.
I think they do a very good job at keeping him on the sidelines, so you never quite know what he's capable of.
Yeah. I think the fact that like his first actual show of power, just brute strength, is the actual backbreaking issue, builds up
Yes.
the fact that Bane is intelligent first and foremost, and that his physicality only complements that,
Yes.
rather than is the main event, you know?
And what's fascinating is live action adaptations have diminished that intelligence to various degrees.
Mhm.
Um, the big one being Batman and Robin, which
Yeah. Although we did also watch a movie for this
we
episode.
did,
We watched The Dark Knight Rises,
and
which
I
does
will
a
have.
much better Bane than Batman and Robin,
Yeah,
but
but The
also
Dark
is
Knight
very much
Rises is
not Bane.
also adapting basically the three of the big Batman events that were published between 1989 and 1999, all smushed together in different aspects. Um, Mainly doing A Lonely Place of Dying in places. Um,
I don't know if I agree with that.
Mainly Tim's story. I have opinions on who Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character should have been, and
I don't know. I kind of like it as its own thing.
Um, and
I don't
then
know.
Nightfall and No Man's Land. Like
Yeah.
those are the two big ones that they're smushing together. And I don't love the way they get to the ending. I like the ending, but I don't love one twist in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, the twist.
The twist.
Yeah. Although I did actually want to mention something in regards to the question that was initially asked. If we're talking about like hurting Bane's credibility as a character in this story, I think you more so do it after the backbreaking, when he's up against Azrael, personally. Um, Not that I think it actually hurts Bane, my image of Bane as a character. But if anything, I think it would be the fault of those issues, personally. But
Yes.
anyway, our last comment for today comes from our friend Kevin on Discord. Truly becoming the Odysseus of comic book podcasters, Jacob. Thoughts?
I suppose this is certainly a journey. It's 1990. Basically 3.5 years of Batman stories, technically ish. Um,
Across 6 weeks.
yeah, across six
Yeah.
weeks.
Yep. It's
Um,
uh it's gonna be fun.
it's gonna be fun. And
And
because
hey,
I'm
2 weeks down. 2 weeks down
2 weeks
already, to be
down,
fair.
also I'm going on vacation in between the release of two of
That
these
is
episodes.
that is true.
So we're gonna be trying to finish it before vacation. I need help.
I wish you the
This
best of luck. I wish myself the best of luck too, but
I do
mostly you.
hope I do
Mostly you,
hope
because
it
I at least don't have to like give it like 100% attention because I've read it already. You know, like
yeah.
I could be like, okay, I know what's happening here. I don't need to like I could turn my brain off a little bit as I'm reading
I
it.
am at least very excited to see where it goes from here.
Mm.
And I'm excited to see how it ends, if it can stick an ending.
Yeah.
Um,
But we
which
will see.
we'll
We'll
see.
see. Yeah. All right. Shall we get into it?
Yes, let's get into spoilers.
All right. Spoilers.
So as always, if you would like to avoid spoilers, you can purchase this book from the links down below,
Mhm.
as well
Also, if
as
you're also, there's no episode reveal at the end of this one, because we're just doing, because this is episode 37, 37. Episode 37 now, and 38 and 39 will be Night Quest and Night's End. We're doing the whole Nightfall saga across 3 episodes of the podcast, and then episode 40 will be another Batman episode, and we're moving into something else after
something
that. So
else.
yeah.
Though oddly enough, after episode we'll have an episode reveal for episode 39, but not for episode 40. Um,
Won't
for
we? Oh,
You already told me what episode 41 is going to be.
did I?
Yeah, because of the guest we're having on.
That's 41?
You told me it was
Fuck, I'm
40.
stupid. You're right. You're absolutely right.
That's what you told me. If it's a different episode, I
No, no. It's been a long couple of days. It's all
anyway,
right.
anyway.
All right. Moving into spoilers. Moving into spoilers. Now, okay. Spoilers are going to be a bit different for this episode. We are not doing a play-by-play like we usually do. We're
Yes,
covering 24 fucking issues. We have notes,
we have
and I think
notes.
that is the best way to tackle this.
Yes, and we have notes. But
Uh,
we do have notes on each issue at least. So
yeah. Unfortunately, we open on a double length issue. I mean, a damn good double length issue.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
it's
complaining
a
at all.
in terms of like
Uh,
individual issues, it's almost a perfect
I
like
do find it kind of funny that Bane's first appearance in anything is called Vengeance of Bane.
yes. I mean,
But
okay.
also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, let's just like it's billed on the cover as a 64-page special. Like
Okay, Jacob adds.
no, that wasn't what I was gonna say. This
Oh,
was
okay.
like I was gonna say this is like a prestige one-shot idea, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like
Yep.
like they saw how well the Killing Joke did, and were like, we need to do more of these.
Yeah. I just want to call it this cover because it's drawn by Glenn Fabry, who did all of the covers for Preacher, what would be what I mostly know him for.
That's why it looks familiar. Because I've
Yeah,
seen the
it's
covers of
that of some,
like
yeah, I'm sure some of the issues of Preacher. But yeah, he did literally all 66 covers for Preacher, and I think all the specials too for Preacher. And he's wonderful, a truly phenomenal artist. I really love this one in particular. It's a great cover.
yes. Um,
Um, yeah.
so the plot of this is a lot of this is dedicated to Bane's backstory.
Yeah. I mean I like I said, I restricted myself to like just a couple notes per issue. I don't have any for this one because it's Bane's origin. I could talk about that like off the top of my head because it's so compelling and it sticks in your mind.
And
Um,
so the origin that I knew mostly for Bane was The Dark Knight Rises,
mm.
and it's not the most inaccurate.
No, honestly, no, not at all. I mean,
Uh,
how it all begins is different. This is about a woman, a pregnant woman whose husband was to be sentenced. He got away, or was he killed?
um, it's not entirely clear.
Anyway, so
What
but her husband was to be sentenced, and because she was having a male child, they sentenced the child instead to stay in this prison on this island,
so
remote island. Um,
So, if I may, what I think is interesting here is we're exploring ideas of sins of the father, and that is that sort of legacy of something being passed down through generations is kind of, at least I believe, what at least Knightfall started out as is its idea, because we have the mantle of the Batman being passed down to Jean-Paul Valley later on,
mhm.
and a lot of these issues try to frame it mostly successfully as is Azrael worthy of the mantle, and the end of this volume ends at the point where it's yes, he is worthy of the mantle. And then obviously the rest of the event, I'm guessing, is going to be a fall from grace.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it a fall from grace if realistically you were never there to begin with?
this is kind of true. Um, also, so the inside art is done by Graham Nolan, um,
Yes. Yeah, who does quite a
who
few of the issues here in
yes,
this
who
collection.
it's kind of a shame because Nolan's a good artist, but for a decent chunk of this, like we're alternating between him and Jim Aparo,
Hmm.
who is just better.
Jim
Like,
Aparo is, yeah. I mean, we've covered Jim Aparo before on the podcast.
uh,
He really is just that good. Um, yeah.
yes,
It does kind of blow Graham Nolan stuff out of the water, doesn't it?
it really does. There are also some aspects of Bane's origin that I love. First off, this is a child in a prison, which is, let's be honest, a dark and disturbing image. And this issue does go to some really dark places in dealing with
Mm.
that child.
Oh, totally.
Not
Have we ever
explicitly.
talked before about Bane's teddy bear?
We have not.
We've not. Okay, because that's the thing that like kind of gets like joked about a lot as his from his character, but like you see it here. It's pretty much the only comfort he had in his prison after his mom died. Um, and I don't know. It just gives it this really just a dark meaning behind it. And it's just kind of funny because oh yeah, big tough Bane. He has a teddy bear, but like you see it here, and it's just I don't know. I really adore that. It's
It
great.
also has just that psychological element that a lot of Batman villains almost have to have because,
Oh yeah.
I mean, in some way, every Batman villain is a dark mirror to Bruce Wayne.
Mhm.
basically in some way, some subtle, some explicit.
Yeah.
And this one is fascinating because throughout this issue, you see this kid grow up, and he grows up, and he gets bigger, he gets jacked, and he gets scarier as he gets bigger.
Mhm.
Like one of the first things that sort of happens to him in prison is he falls into a coma, and has this terrible
I mean,
nightmare.
I gotta say, this is the one of the only things about this show I don't like, because I find it really funny him literally seeing the man he will become.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny. He's like glowing in this yellow light, and I find it funny. I don't
Though
know.
I think it's funny, but I think it almost thematically it works just a little bit um with sort of almost the prophetic nature that some of the story tries to deal with what Azrael has going on in his head.
Mm,
Or could have worked better. I don't think it works perfectly because
yeah.
there are some issues later on. But like you then see him sort of almost as like a teenager, and he is like these gaunt eyes, like he basically makes a name for himself, has bloodlust, and dedicates himself to being fear. Um,
Hmm.
and he's a villain with a god complex, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like he's at one point he's put into solitary, and you just see like he looks terrifying, right?
Hmm.
Um, and but he also finds people to work with, and
Yeah, well, yeah, because he like makes his own little crew within the walls of the prison, um, as he continues to like train himself both physically and mentally. He like goes out. He befriends a guy named Bird, who we see a lot throughout this collection. And it's honestly probably my favorite member of like Bane's crew.
certainly
Um,
the most interesting.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But like Bane, like he just starts to like seek knowledge in addition to his intense training. He starts reading every book he can possibly find, and then wants even more. You watch his training. You see him become better and stronger and smarter, as
And
the
I think
time
it's
goes on.
very important that he's an intelligent character.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
Um,
what it's what annoys me probably the most now about Batman and Robin.
yeah, doesn't it hurt? Like even just this one issue really shows you why Batman and Robin is such a severe misunderstanding of the character.
Yeah. And like a lot of the horrific things he does in prison are done before any of the Venom experiments.
Yeah.
Because there are prison doctors who then, uh, basically submit him to experimentation, and
Hmm.
he's the only one who survives the experiments.
Meanwhile,
Um,
Bane is also hearing stories. I think he first hears it from Bird, right?
right.
Because Bird comes from Gotham, and he hears stories of this man that rules this city. He owns this entire city. People fear him, and so
And he
Bane
sees
sees.
visions of Batman as this bat-like monster,
Yeah.
which is great for, the
Hmm.
external idea
This
of
is a guy
Batman.
that doesn't even know anything about Batman. He's heard stories about Batman, and as long as he knows that Batman is a man that controls an entire city, Bane views that as a challenge. Um, and so it set up a very different sort of rivalry between the two of them. Um, where we get to the point where eventually Bane and Batman actually meet, and they don't know each other at all. Bane doesn't even know Batman as well as he would like to. And a lot of the stories about him getting to know Batman because he's only heard stories up to this point, and this rivalry is sort of already made before they even lock eyes,
Yes.
which I
Well,
find kind of
interestingly, in the prelude issues, he has been watching Batman from afar, and he
hmm.
has had a confrontation with Tim. Um,
That is okay. That's interesting.
it's the point where Killer Croc gets his arm broken.
Oh,
Um,
that's right. Okay, yeah, yeah.
which is a
I
thing that
gotcha.
happens. Which is it's clearly we need to show that Bane is super strong, so let's get our super strong Killer Croc, who is a character we haven't covered on the podcast outside of the bonus
Uh,
episode.
Hush. He was in Hush.
Oh right, he's in Hush.
He is in Hush.
He is in Hush. How did I
Yeah.
forget that?
Right.
But like he is, but uh yeah, but he's more silent muscle there because his condition is degenerating.
Hmm.
While I like portrayals where he is also a more intelligent character um,
Yeah, I gotcha.
than silent muscle. But yes, so
Yeah, so you were talking about the Venom experiments. Bane like eventually like fakes his own death. He escapes the prison and then makes his way back in and begins to free his crew that the men that he made friends with throughout all this. Really great sequence. I truly love that.
and then he
Um,
eventually is the one to adapt the venom to go do a line directly into his head.
mhm.
Also, we see quite a bit of Bane without the mask on, which
Yeah, I was curious. Were you expecting that? I mean,
I was
obviously not.
not. I was thinking
um,
like it's Bane. That mask is who the character like that's who the character is. You never take off Bane's mask. I was kind of primed by Dark Knight Rises, how they adapted the character into it being him, the mask being sort of a way of administering constant painkillers, so he would
yeah.
never take it off.
Mhm.
Um,
And also that mask in Dark Knight Rises being sort of like a symbol of fear. So it is interesting here. No one outside of his crew sees him without the mask on.
yes, but we are privy to that.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, his target is the obsession with Gotham City.
Hmm.
Uh, and what's interesting is that like he doesn't get to Gotham for like a good 40 pages into the issue, which
Oh
is
no. Yeah. Most would have spent just getting to know him as a character.
yeah, which I think the issue is what like without the ads, it's about
55, I think.
yeah like 55. So it's still a very long issue,
Yeah.
um, and you don't feel the length. Like
No. Oh
this is a
no. Not at
great
all.
issue.
Yeah.
Batman only shows up in basically a cameo,
Hmm.
because he goes into Gotham. Some of his victims are investigated by Harvey Bullock and Renee Montoya,
Who
who
you just sort of like kept telling you're like, I just can't believe she's here.
I'm glad she's here, but I can't believe it because
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, so this issue was published in December '92.
Yeah.
Like
So she hadn't even been in the animated series for that long.
the animated series, I think started in September, so she
Yeah.
had a couple of months,
Yeah.
and she's already made the jump to comics. Which I mean, of course she should. She's a great character.
But that
Surprised that
long
it,
before Harley Quinn, even, you
yeah,
know?
it. I'm surprised. I'm more surprised that
I
it
mean, I guess
took.
it's much easier to take the name of a cop from a show and carry it over than this whole other side of the Joker that was created for an animated show. Uh,
That's true, but I'm still surprised it took until '99 for Harley to show up. Uh,
yeah, I gotcha.
um, as well as again, you see, I love the coloring on this issue when it goes monochrome.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. That whole sequence with where Bane just watches Batman fight off these goons. Meanwhile,
yeah,
Bane is killing the rest of them. Not even for the purpose of like getting the cops to think like, oh well, Batman killed these guys. Like no, it's just to get the job done faster. He just wants to see what Batman can do. Really, really interesting. I love it.
and
And
we
Bane,
we
yeah.
then
Oh,
we
sorry.
then
Go ahead.
end the issue just on this great sort of a spread of this sort of like it's not even a spread; it's just one page of Bane with like this fire in his eye in the middle of a storm,
Mhm.
declaring Gotham will be his. It's a great opening.
Yeah. We also get Bane issues his warning to Batman, the whole mission statement of this story. Bane says, "You will know my name one day, and on that day you will beg for mercy, and you will scream my name, scream it," which is the whole point of this rivalry,
And
and we
yeah,
get right into it. So
yeah.
it's such a
So
great issue. Oh, I adore
after
it.
this is basically all the prelude issues. Um, that's where they all
Which we are
happen.
not covering. We're covering the paperback version.
But what is
Um,
nice is that you then see Bruce starting to slowly get worn down. Not completely. We establish we establish a couple of characters here who are important. Obviously, Jean Paul Valley gets a couple of appearances where he's taken on as a sidekick because Bruce Wayne needs to rest. Um,
mhm.
we get Sarah Essen as a character, or
Yes.
here as Sarah Gordon.
Which is so
Um,
funny because we've come such a long way from me telling you who Sarah is back in our year one episode and being like, oh yeah, well here's the thing, she's Gordon's second wife, and you were like, what? And now we're here, we're in that era where she's his second wife,
she's his
and
second wife.
yeah,
Um,
I just find that interesting.
we all yeah. Um, we also get we get a nice 4 issue Black Mask storyline. Which not as quippy as Winnick would make him, but still fun.
Hmm.
We also get Dr. Chandra Kinsleving, who will
Yes.
become very important, and basically the establishment that Bruce Wayne needs some sort of therapy.
Cool.
Um, Before we actually start with,
Batman 491, with such a good cover. I adore this cover.
yeah,
It's I don't know.
this
I
is
just love it. Batman with that giant cape, that
this is this
that illogical
covers
giant cape.
this covers
Um,
by Kelly Jones.
yes, who does a
Uh,
lot of the covers for this collection, actually.
yes, and I think
Um,
keeps quite a few keeps going through uh, of all three. I think every collected edition of this has had either a reproduction of a Jones cover or a Jones original
which
for
makes
their
sense
artwork.
because I mean they're all great.
They're all great.
Yeah.
And
Um, Sorry, go ahead.
So the plot of 491, this is the final prelude issue, and it's included for good reason
hmm
because this
Um,
is the night of chaos begins, right?
Yeah, I don't really have many notes for this issue because the gist of it is Arkham breakout. You know that's what's
Yes.
happening here. Bane's plan to start wearing Batman down is to create a hole in the side of Arkham that a bunch of inmates can run out of and begin their reign of terror on the city. And that's what most of this issue is, and it's a really effective one too. Um,
I do
you,
love that Bane has this robot, um, this remote controlled robot that looks like a 1960s like Lost in Space early American TV robot.
yeah.
Um, I noted it down. I noted it down. It looks like the robot from Colony in Space,
Oh yes, it
just
does.
without the claws.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Um, there's your Doctor Who reference for the evening.
There we
Um,
go. I wonder just how many of these Fresh Face Comics episodes we have referenced Doctor Who on.
oh, at least to reference an episode, because if not, one of our questions will be like, so here's a Doctor Who reference slipped in subtly somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Um, I did also make a note about this. I don't know why. I just wanted to make a note about this. Tim Drake giving haircuts, I think, is just really funny. I don't know.
it is. I mean, okay. Can we actually talk about the way Tim is designed? Because some,
How so?
it's a decent design, but his hair. Some artists do not know how to draw that hairstyle.
Ah, okay, I get it. I'm like, I don't mind the hairstyle, but yeah,
I don't
I
mind
get
it,
it.
but
I get
like
it.
some artists draw it way too straight and it doesn't look like hair. This is Jim
Mm,
Aparo, so it looks great. And what's interesting is he's cutting the hair of Jean Paul Valley, right? Who is
yeah,
already established as being a sidekick to
yeah.
Batman, and is kind of a fragile mind already.
Yeah, yeah, you already sort of get the idea that there's something not quite right there.
Yes.
But yeah, we like I said, a lot of this issue is just the breakout of Arkham.
You get
Um,
some great Joker moments.
this is such a great Joker issue. He goes straight to Jeremiah Arkham, and a lot of the issue is just him fucking with Jeremiah Arkham. And I really love those scenes. They're so good.
But yeah,
A lot of great moments you could hear in the Hamill voice, I think.
oh yeah, and by this point they would have had Hamill would have had quite a few appearances, so
Yeah, oh
I wouldn't be
definitely.
surprised if that voice was what some of the what Dixon and Mensch were really hearing.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, you have a riot at Arkham. A lot of them get guns. Um, Bruce comes in and well, um, he doesn't get explicitly injured, but he kind of loses because everybody escapes without him.
Mhm.
Um,
I find it so funny that they draw specifically in this issue Two-Face escaping, and he's just never one of the prisoners they take down.
he is not.
There's a story about Two-Face later, but it has nothing to do with the breakout.
No, it doesn't. But there's also, I do believe also like some injuries sustained in the prelude is implied to be um, what's causing Bruce so much pain. We end on this page with this great image of Gordon just like, God help us, this is bad, and
Yeah.
Bruce screaming in agony.
Oh, it's
Um,
so good. I adore it. Really great stuff here. We go into Batman 492 then. And this is where we start just laying out how a lot of the issues leading up to the backbreaking are going to work out. They're going to focus in on one or two Batman villains and it's going to be about Bruce and Tim taking them down and getting them back, captured again, which is a pretty basic setup, and you wouldn't think that it should be as interesting as it ends up being, I think,
Yes.
but it really works. So this one in particular is about the Mad Hatter.
Yes.
And
My
have
first
we
note is that the
have we
Mad Hatter is basically Odd Job from Goldfinger
for wait oh he's from Goldfinger, yeah, you're right, okay,
because of that
you
because
know
of the hat.
yeah, I gotcha.
Um, but we haven't actually done a Mad Hatter issue before this.
No, we haven't. You're right.
Um,
Oh
he
wait, no,
got
he had some Long Halloween stuff.
yeah, he was there, but he didn't do much. He didn't get like an issue focused.
Yeah,
He was paired with Scarecrow for Long Halloween.
yeah.
Um, but this is one of honestly a great sort of campy issue. Doug Mensch writing, and then Norm Brayfogle is drawing. And
Mhm.
when you talk about like Batman capes, Joey,
Oh
like there
yeah,
are some shots here where the cape is
it is.
beautifully ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's just it's always one of the best things about Batman capes. The bigger and more unbelievable you can draw it, the better. I just love that. I think it always adds like a mythic element to the character, in my opinion. But
Uh,
whatever. But yeah, I
we do
also love.
get we get some nice moments also of Bruce like let's just pushing himself too hard, wanting to beat the police to the scene and taking down Hatter.
Mhm,
Um, you also see, or for like the actual title page of this issue, this giant wall of Batman villains that have obviously escaped Arkham. Um,
mhm,
and I don't know, I love the image.
mhm.
It makes the threat feel very very real.
Yeah.
Uh,
We don't get many glimpses of Bane in this, but the only thing we do see is him watching this interview. I'm assuming it's meant to be the same doctor from later on with the
yes,
book. I
it's
don't think they
Dr.
actually,
Flanders.
yeah, I don't think they actually name him though in this issue, which is
They do
interesting.
at one point. They just give him the name Dr. Flanders, and
Okay.
this is one of the plot lines that I just did not love. Uh,
What? Oh, come
I
on. I
I don't
love
think it
this.
really went anywhere, and
Well,
like,
it culminates in the Riddler issue.
yeah, but I
Oh, come on. At the very least, it's fun. Come on.
it's fun, but it
There
doesn't.
is not much fun to be had in this story, but this is fun.
I guess it didn't do it for me, honestly.
Ah, you're no fun. Whatever. We're moving on.
It reminded me a lot of it feels like they saw Frank Miller doing integrating the news in Dark Knight Returns, and we're like, well, let's do that, and let's do it not necessarily as interestingly. Um, Especially since this guy's big point is honestly, he sounds like some of like people on Twitter who act like Batman's not really a help to the city. He just
Yeah,
beats up mentally ill
yeah,
people.
he beats up the mentally ill. Yeah. No, I think that's the point of the character, I imagine. But whatever. I do like the little tea party that Mad Hatter throws towards the end of
Yes.
this issue with his monkey and everything. I don't
As
know.
well as
It's fun.
he's brainwashing all the people he's brainwashing are like C to Z list villains.
Hmm.
Um, so not even just normal people, just villains. Like one of the people he names is the Film Freak,
Yes.
which I would love a dedicated Film Freak issue, please.
Right?
Someone write a story about a villain called the Film Freak and play it entirely straight.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it exists long before this issue, and I don't know.
Probably written by Grant Morrison.
I would love it.
Um,
But yeah. Also, what Bane just straight up fucking murders this one guy here, right? I
oh
forget who
yeah.
he's killing.
Um,
Is that meant to be the film freak?
I possibly. Um,
I can't
I
remember. I don't know. I swear I just read this, but also it was a good 20 odd issues ago. So
yeah, but like I think it is the film freak that he
oh,
kills.
that's right. Oh, yeah, because you can see the one panel as Bane snaps his neck. He's wearing these earrings that are film reels.
Yes. Um,
I
also,
love it.
he puts his chimp in a vest. Um,
Hmm.
and obviously, this issue sprinkled with Alice in Wonderland references of some sort because it's the Mad Hatter. Um, and it's Bane as a threat. Mad Hatter is taken down fairly easily. Um, and it's like basically we end this on this note of one down, several more to go,
And Batman's
uh,
like plus
plus
Bane,
Bane. Um,
who he still knows nothing about at this point.
no, Bane is just this muscle bound dude. He's like, I will end you, and you will beg him for mercy.
Yeah.
Um,
But we go into I can't say detective for some reason. Detective
Detective
Comics
Comics.
659, which is one of my favorite early issues of this collection. It's our ventriloquist Scarface and Socko's story.
So I will say, at this point, I was a little worried. Um, on at least the format. I'm like, oh, is this just going to be a standard villain shows up, gets defeated, Bane pops up for a little bit until we actually get to the backbreaking. And this is the first issue. This issue almost immediately reassured me because it's actually doing something really interesting with the villain that it has.
Hmm.
You said Sacco, and
Yeah, so ventriloquist Arnold Wesker has escaped from Arkham with everybody else, and in the process has lost his signature puppet Scarface, and has made a new friend for himself, which is a sock on his left hand named Socko.
Sacco. Also, Maxi Zeus.
Yeah, Maxie
Maxi
Zeus makes a
Zeus.
brief
Okay.
appearance where he
Well,
like runs into a tree, right?
so because of the way that sort of that title page of the last issue was laid out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna guess a lot of the villains who are in the center of sort of the paneling are gonna be villains who we get focus on. And one of them is Maxi Zeus. I'm like, oh, are we gonna focus on Maxi Zeus?
And he gets like a one-page appearance here, and I think that's literally it.
1.5 pages, because he's in a straitjacket, gloating, drawn kind of like the Scarecrow. I initially thought it might have been the Scarecrow,
Hmm.
but he hits himself into a tree and gets knocked out and is bleeding. Um, but yeah, Sokko's a great character.
Sokko's
Uh,
great. Ventriloquist and Sokko team up with Amygdala, uh, another Z-lister in the mix of all this, who's just muscle pretty much.
Another big
Um,
muscle character, which I find it interesting that there are quite a few muscle characters um, sprinkled throughout this because Bane is kind of a muscle character, but a muscle character with more depth and more sort of intrigue as a character, um, which I particularly like. Um, but Amygdala and Ventriloquist and Sacco make this very nice trio.
they
Like,
do, they do, they complement each other very nicely.
um,
We
and
also get another
this,
scene in this issue with Dr. Flanders on TV
um,
talking about his book "I'm Sane and So Are You," which I think is just
yes,
fun. I don't know. I don't know what you didn't see in this character. I thought it was
some of
funny.
it might be um, Uh, it might be because it feels like it's taking pot shots at mental health care just in general at places. That kind of annoyed me a little bit. Um,
I mean, I feel
uh,
like you can take pot shots at certain mental facilities. I think that's what
yeah,
this is doing.
I don't think it's though as effective with its satire as perhaps it could be. Um,
Mhm.
Especially, especially for the 90s, like if it were taking more pot shots at like pop psychology, which I think that's what it's attempting. I just don't think it does it very well.
Mm.
Especially since he's a doctor who wrote a book, and we're not interviewing someone about like an actual psychological treatment or anything. Um,
Mm.
I think it would be it would be a bit more effective. Um, than it is, especially since a lot of these early ones are just random interludes. Um, One thing I do really like about this issue, other than our villains being just the perfect trio somehow,
Mhm.
um, is Bruce and Tim. Like they have some great interactions. Um,
Yeah.
because throughout all of this, Tim Drake and Alfred Pennyworth are the only two characters with like their heads completely screwed down their shoulders. Um, and there's some stuff where it's clear Tim is also being put through the ringer, um, just completely. And that
Hmm.
kind of starts here because his dad is established to have already been injured um, recently and dealing with recovery, like having to recover. Um, and now seeing his mentor being tormented, um, and eventually being he's kind of responsible for Azrael being brought on board.
Hmm.
Um, and that not going great. I really like that we got a lot of Tim Drake content.
Yeah,
Like,
oh, definitely. Um, Ventriloquist also finds a couple of their puppet friends to be with him and Sako throughout this. There's a
there's
duck, there's a
there's also an
mouse.
image of Sako drinking a beer.
Yes, which is hilarious. Um,
Um,
oh my god, I forgot all this because I just flipped to this page. It's 16 of the individual issue. This is just Tim Drake finding Bird with this shit-eating grin on his face.
yes.
I don't know why he's drawn like that. It's great. Um, anyway, Batman faces off with Amygdala in this. As Robin faces off with Bird.
Bird.
Um, Batman eventually defeats Amygdala, and Robin goes to chase Bird as Bird gets away. He leaves a little note for Batman towards the end. It says, "Went bird watching," and Batman just doesn't fight Ventriloquist or Sako. They're just kind of left to do their own thing because Batman knows they're such a non-threat.
Yeah, Bruce has to make the decisions of we have people like the Joker running around, as well as Bane, who is clearly a threat.
Yeah, is this worth it?
And sadly, it isn't. Honestly, the ventriloquist probably just needs help.
Yeah,
Like he's a villain who needs help.
yeah.
Um, Batman.
Anyway, we go into Batman 493. Which I actually own this issue individually.
Ooh.
It's beautiful. The cover especially is beautiful in its original colors. But yeah, again, another beautiful Batman cape there. And
Um,
seeing Victor Zsasz here. So this is our first ever
yes.
comic Victor Zsasz. Um,
Yes.
and
And
I mean, of course, I'm sure you were reading him with the Arkham Asylum voice, right?
oh, I was.
Yeah. Oh God, he's so perfect. And like, this is one of my favorite issues of this whole
And
collection.
it's this one made my stomach turn.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah. The whole premise is Zaz has these women hostage, and the police are outside of this building. It's a library, right?
uh
They're trapped
yeah, it's
in.
a library on a college campus.
And so yes, he has all these college girls trapped there. The police are outside trying to negotiate it all, and Batman is just trying to get there as fast as he can and
And
deal with this.
a lot of the exterior colors I think we
Hmm.
have to discuss. They're these pinks and blues.
Yeah.
Um and it's a choice. So the colorist on this issue
Adrian Roy.
is Adrian Roy, who is
Yeah.
basically is one of the just sort of the like standard DC 80s and 90s colorists.
Hmm.
Like I've seen I saw we've seen her name before on a lot of books. But here, like she is just on top form for a lot of this
Yeah.
event.
Hmm.
Um, and she does her job incredibly well, and and it helps that there are such dynamic pencils and inks to be working from. But it's great. Like all the pinks are amazing. The way the blood is portrayed,
Yeah. And there's
because
some downright just horror in this issue. Like there are just a couple scenes where like cops find other cops' necks slashed
there's
while Zaz was going through them. He kills multiple people throughout this in these beautiful blue and red silhouettes. Um
and I'm
and we
surprised
see
they got
Zaz
away with it.
we
Like
see, honestly, we see Zaz literally mark himself with his knife. Like, ugh, it's horrifying. I love it.
like
Oh, it's
I
it's
know the Comics Code Authority wasn't as powerful by the 90s,
certainly not. Yeah.
but in terms of violence, it still was.
Yeah,
That's why
it's
Image just was famously hyper violent because they didn't have the Comic Code Authority seal of approval. Um,
mhm.
so they went crazy violent, and and it really works. It really
Yeah.
works for this issue.
hmm
Um,
And Zaz is just terrifying throughout the whole thing. Doug Mensch is on this issue writing it and like just absolutely nails it. Really, really horrifying. I also love this panel in particular. It's on page 10 where Batman first arrives and he's above the cops and he's silhouetted against this lightning and his cape is colored in this like pink.
yeah,
It's absolutely beautiful as he grapples into the library, and has a he almost attacks Tim because Tim is inside there investigating Bird and everything, um, and uh, and you just see just how on edge Bruce is in this whole situation.
yes,
It's really interesting to see.
and it's only going to get worse from here
Yeah.
because that's all it can do.
hmm
Interestingly, what I find fascinating is that this entire story arc up to the backbreaking takes place. Some time passes, but it's only over a couple of days,
hmm
and it's almost explicit that Bruce does not get any sleep
Yeah.
over
Oh,
these
yeah.
couple of days.
Oh, totally.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's also Renee Montoya who comes in and confronts Zaz.
Yeah.
Uh,
I actually did want to mention because I had these noted. There are these couple scenes leading up to it where the college girls are talking amongst themselves and like one of them is like trying to like rally them together. It's like, oh well, he can't kill all of us, you know. We can take him together, and they're just all so dejected by this. They're like, yeah, we're still gonna die. Like we can't do anything. And so when Zaz actually takes one of these girls to kill her, Montoya is the one that comes in and just kind of knows that she can't do anything. So she even like surrenders herself to let the girl go. And that's when Batman comes in and fights off Zaz, and Zaz threatens Montoya. And it's this great standoff between Zaz and Batman. One of these great scenes, and then eventually gets washed in these monochrome blues. Really
there's
great
also this
stuff.
great moment of where it's very subtly done that Zaz knows what Bane is doing
hmm
and is just
And
knows what buttons to push.
it's so interesting that they don't let the audience in on just how many of these villains know Bane's plan and how many of them are just taking advantage of the chaos.
I mean,
Um,
that helps add to just the chaotic, frenetic feeling of the entire story
mhm.
because it could just be because it just sort of adds that layer of is Bruce playing right into Bane's hands?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
and he totally does towards the end of this issue. Like he damn near kills Zaz, and Montoya stops him, um, and he knows that like he went way too far in the beating he gave him, and
we
yeah,
again,
it's rough.
the way these issues ends are almost always utterly brilliant.
Yeah, almost always in defeat for Bruce. You see
Uh,
him just absolutely broken by the end of each one, and it's so good. All
um,
right, Batman's 660, or no, Detective
Detective
660.
Comics 660.
Detective 660, that's it.
It's the
Um,
issue of Detective Comics, like the like this is an era where the title for Detective Comics is in such smaller text as Detective Comics featuring Batman.
yeah, they want you to. That's the same thing that happens with Action Comics too. They still do that to this day. Is they'll always put Batman and Superman on those titles, and it's still like just much smaller. Detective Comics, Action Comics, whatever. Um,
But I'd argue that depending on the logo, like this is for the Detective Comics logo itself is very easy to gloss over, unlike say the classic
mhm.
Action Comics logo. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I
like that
gotcha.
like which I believe they still use a variation on the original like that original
Mhm.
Action Comics logo, which even when it's smaller, is still iconic enough to see. Whereas Detective Comics, it's just text. It's
Yeah,
normal text.
there's no set logo for it.
Um,
But
it's a
anyway, so we go
shame.
into this one. I want to talk about immediately Jim Balent, who is a guest penciler on this issue,
Yes.
and I think it's just fucking brilliant.
I know
Um,
he's the guy who was responsible for like Catwoman's original like series that she had in the 90s, I
okay,
believe.
yeah,
Um,
we'll be seeing some more of his stuff, I guess
yes.
next time then. So
Yes.
yeah,
Uh, also, Killer Croc issue.
I
Like,
love the way he draws Croc. Like, oh, just horrifying. Oh,
and
so
I
good.
like how Dixon treats Croc in this issue. Like,
hmm
Croc is feral and mad.
But he's sympathetic too.
He's sympathetic and humanly feral and mad. He's mad
Yeah.
because he's had his this guy came in and broke his fucking arms. Like,
hmm
that's where the anger is coming from. He's not angry because he's an animal. He's angry because of that and just the general isolation of his skin condition.
Yeah.
Um, and one, it also builds up just the great fear of who could break the arms of Killer Croc and live to tell the tale.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Once again, building up the great threat that Bane is, both physically and intellectually. We do catch up on our two side plots, the two really funny side plots throughout these issues. With Ventriloquist still looking for Scarface, and Flanders having another interview about his book.
I am happy that
Um,
the ventriloquist plot wasn't immediately dropped
oh no, no, no,
because
yeah, they keep that going for a while.
it helps. It's one of those things that helps break up the issues and not make them like, despite there being the clear formula of a new villain to face each issue, it doesn't just feel like that. It helps break things up
Yeah, I agree.
and keeps
Um,
things moving.
so in
Uh,
Robin's search for Bane, he gets captured by Bane. He gets trapped in these sewers, and that is quickly cut off by Croc because they're in the sewers. Croc is going to try to take on Bane. And after it's actually a pretty great moment where because I have this noted where Robin thinks he's about to fight Bane, and he gets the blindfold off of him, and Croc is standing right in front of him. It's a really great moment. I love that one. But then we actually get the fight, or rather the rematch between Bane and Croc, and just super well drawn as Robin tries to escape. The sewers start to crumble around them because they break this like brick lining that they're standing on. And the issue ends, and Robin is drowning in the sewers, and it's a really great issue. Simple, very simple issue, but I really like it.
yeah. Well, and sometimes for a story like this, a simple issue is what you need.
Yeah, oh, absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
this is the fourth issue, um, and or at least the fourth issue where you actually have the Knightfall
Yeah, it's
branding
the
at the
Nightfall
top.
label. Yeah, yeah.
So if we're
Um,
going by like word of mouth spreading that, ooh, there's a big Batman event that's gonna rival the death of Superman.
mhm.
It's at this
And
point
I
where
mean, sorry, go ahead.
you need to be careful so if you get new readers coming in,
Yeah,
that they can easily follow.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So we go into Batman 494 then. Another great cover. I don't know. It's fun. Just I don't know. I love Batman just standing over Joker like this. I also just
uh,
love when artists draw Batman with ridiculously long ears like that. Look at that. That is insane.
yeah, and it's this is for our first sort of villain team up issue,
Yeah.
um, which I didn't know I needed this team up of characters.
Right. Also, this has the moment that I love to bring up every now and then on Twitter. When Joker tries to go talk with this guy. I already forget his name because he gets pushed to the side so fast. Um, who is this guy? I can't remember his name. Cornelius Stirk. That's it. He tries to like employ this guy, and he knocks on the door, and Stirk is like, "Who is it?" And Joe, and he's like, "Joe
Joe
who?" And
who?
I don't know. It's funny. Uh,
Joker.
Joker, not going where you think it's going. But no, we get that moment. I don't know who Cornelius Stirk is. This is the only story I know him from. I don't know if he's from anything else,
I think
but
he's like just a minor Batman villain.
who's
I think
clearly just sort of a Scarecrow clone, but not as interesting because he doesn't have a gimmick.
no.
Yeah.
Uh, what's also great is this is an issue where we first get we get to see Bruce Wayne as Bruce Wayne not
Sort of
sleeping.
recuperating, and he goes to talk to his therapist. Um,
Chandra Kinselving, who you've
yes.
mentioned before, she's interesting because she's set up as a love interest for Bruce.
Hmm.
And what's fascinating is I don't know if I hope she gets some time in Night Quest to shine. That answers that question. Because she's kind of a
She's
plot
there a little bit.
device.
She's there a little bit.
She kind of devolves into a plot device.
Mhm.
Um, quite a bit, quite quickly. Um, here she's great because uh, they're both sparking romance. Bruce has been like avoiding his physical therapy sessions,
Mhm.
and she's pissed. And it's the wrong decision for Bruce because yeah, um, he's being beaten down. Like Tim has been rescued from the sewers, and we see him basically being treated for hypothermia.
Yep.
Gordon has been dealing with the mayor of Gotham, who's just a corrupt mayor.
Yep.
Um,
We get a
I
lot of
don't
those
know if the
around here.
plot goes anywhere really. Um,
There's a bit more to it in Night Quest. Yep.
okay, so it keeps going because it isn't resolved by the end of Knightfall.
No.
Um, but he is awful, and this is sort of this is our first moment to actually regroup,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a
That is,
very
of
quick
course,
moment.
until for some reason Scarecrow is terrorizing a pool hall, which I just find kind of funny.
Um,
But yeah, Batman is too late to
well,
catch up with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
here's the thing: he's looking for the Joker,
Mm-hmm.
and he just happens to find a Joker henchman at a pool hall.
Love it.
I also love that he has this skull that he squirts his fear gas from. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a great image. I don't know if they keep that image in like current comics to feature the Scarecrow. If they
Not
don't,
really.
bring it back. It's a cool image.
Yeah, oh,
Uh,
totally. I love this bit where uh they use fear gas then to make Gordon think he's meeting with Batman, and then Batman just like punches Gordon in the face, and you find out that it's Stark. Um, which is funny because I don't know, did they so does Stark make his own fear gas
I
similar to
think
Scarecrow's?
I think the idea that it isn't just fear gas because they list off a bunch of neurotransmitters, norepinephrine and adrenaline, as well as hormones. So I think Stirk is just like maybe a chemist who is creating a hallucination. Um,
Huh.
yeah,
Odd.
because he's hired by the Joker, and the Joker is pissed. It's like you were supposed to kidnap him, not kill him. Um,
And then the
and by the
second that
time
they stop Stark and get him away, like Joker immediately teams up with Scarecrow, and then Sarah comes in and sees that Gordon still thinks that Batman attacked him, so Sarah hates Batman then, and
this is like a final straw because the prelude issues do go into sort of this sort of three-way rivalry between the characters
Mhm.
um, fairly well, but out of context, it's just like you see it's almost the classic. It's not what it looks like. You just saw me over the murder victim holding the knife, which I think is quite funny. Um,
And then we end the issue on a pretty great note. Knowing that our mayor is corrupt, Gordon, Joker, and Scarecrow start terrorizing the mayor, and you want to see that happen. It's great.
yeah. Also,
Um,
skulls with snakes coming out of their eyes. Um,
which is a beautiful image.
and the skulls turn into the images of the Joker and the Scarecrow, um, as uh, you know, and they're gonna like basically make the mayor make phone calls for them to get them what they want because of the fear
Which part of me is
toxin.
like, okay, cool. There's like some legitimate like power grasping for them to do there, but also like I kind of want them to make the mayor make crank calls.
Oh, I think at least some of the calls are definitely just prank calls. Like I think that's implied with the Joker involved.
I would
Um,
imagine.
but yeah, so now we're at Detective
Did,
Comics 661.
yes.
And this
Yes.
is the first issue where I'm like, it's a shame this one isn't an Aparo issue.
Mm,
Mainly because it features the Joker so heavily.
yeah.
And
Oh yeah. A
like
Paris
Nolan's
Joker
not
is like,
bad.
oh yeah, Nolan draws a good Joker.
He's just not Jim Aparo.
Yeah, I do like the way Graham Nolan draws Scarecrow though.
Yes.
He almost always keeps the eyes of his mask covered by his hat, and he puts this little
Yeah.
glint in there for his eyes. It's really nice. But anyway, did you so you know the Firefly, right?
I am aware of the Firefly, mainly
Oh well,
partially.
we had the animated series, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there was an episode
Uh,
about it. I always
there's
forget that episode exists. It's a good
yeah, it's an
episode.
episode that exists, and I knew that Brendan Fraser was cast to play him in the
In
Batgirl
Batgirl.
film,
Yep. Yes, he was. Yes, he
which we
was.
will never see, sadly.
Yep. Also,
Um,
eventually, he's also in Arkham Origins when you play that eventually.
yes, which
So
I have not played that,
yes,
sadly.
and also a side mission in Arkham Knight. So
Yes,
good stuff.
but I
Anyway,
also love. Okay, so so the Joker finds his phone number to call the Firefly in through the phone book. Like that's implied.
yeah.
Also, this issue goes very orange, and I
Yes,
love it.
and oh yeah, the colors are so nice. It's just this whole thing of of Garfield Lynns just lighting everything on fire, and Batman trying to stop it, and clearly being too tired to do so, and
Tim re
Tim trying to knock some sense into him.
and
Um,
utterly failing.
yeah.
Um, and we're at a classic amusement park because a lot of amusement park rides are made of wood, and wood is flammable.
hmm
Um,
Also, we we briefly catch up with the ventriloquist plot here, and I love this scene so much where he's threatening this lawyer with the duck puppet he had from before holding a gun, and
holding the gun,
Sako and Sako, and then
Sokka doing the
and then
talking.
the duck puppet goes away, and he comes back up as like this just menacing but childlike looking police officer.
It's like a Punch and Judy police officer is what is where my brain went.
It's so
Um,
funny. It's just, oh my God, I love this plot line so much.
it adds some nice levity without going.
Oh yeah, yeah. It doesn't like delve into like just like outright laugh out loud comedy, but it does put a massive smile on your face, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's another good way of breaking up the pacing of a lot of these very heavy issues.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
we also see we get a wonderful Alfred scene with Bruce, who just says all he needs is a hot shower and breakfast,
Mhm.
whereas Alfred's like, no, you fucking don't, child, but I'm the butler, so I have to obey.
Yeah.
Um,
Tim goes out and does some detective work to find out what Firefly's targets are. We get a little scene with Dr. Flanders. We get a little scene with the Riddler, which seems kind of out of place for now.
so okay, this is actually following up on something that happened in the prelude. Is
Okay.
the Riddler was injected with venom and it fucked him up?
Oh,
Like,
huh. That's
yeah.
interesting.
So like Bruce faced Venom like just like the drug without really facing Bane.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's interesting.
and the Riddler is just kind of pissed
Yeah.
about that. So
Hmm.
that's why this is here.
That's
Um,
cool.
but we do start getting an ongoing Riddler plot line.
That we do.
Uh,
That we do. Um, well, rather Renee Montoya finds Firefly's sister Amanda, and she's talking about like all of their like childhood places that they love to go to, and we quickly put together because Robin's listening in that it's all the places that Firefly's attacking. Meanwhile, Batman is fighting the Cavalier, who's another Z-lister that escaped Arkham, and I just I don't know, it's just funny.
I mean,
Um,
it's also an important. This is also an important scene because he's having a little bit of he's even on these like Z-listers, he's having to be rough and not really plan it well. It's a really
mhm.
good way of showing sort of that the balls that Bruce is juggling are in the air and they're getting ready to fall.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
before we end
Um,
the issue in an inferno from Firefly.
yeah.
Um,
We go into Batman 495 then with a great Poison Ivy cover, and again, just gigantic fucking Batman ears. Look at those. They are
I think
majestic.
that's just you can tell it's a Kelly Jones cover
They are
because of the
majestic, are
ears.
they not? Look at
They
them.
are.
They are penetrating the logo. That's how high up they go. Like,
Uh,
it's beautiful. Yeah, really, really great stuff. Um, Batman loses his fight with Firefly. What else is there to say? Azrael goes out and does some ninja work or whatever, and
yeah. So you want to know who designed that costume in
I'm scared.
universe?
I'm kind of who?
Tim did it.
You know what? I believe that.
In universe, that's a Tim Drake creation.
Tim Drake is a
Uh,
multi-talented lad in the comics.
yes. Um, he's great. Also, I think it does a really good. This issue does a good job of getting an idea of who Jean Paul Valley is, because at this point they know where they're going. We know where,
Yeah,
like both authors and Alan Grant, who will come and do the Shadow of the Bad issues, know where this story is making it.
yeah. There's this rich people gala that Bruce Wayne is going to. Um, and Bane is watching as Bruce Wayne goes to it and immediately figures out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Which I really like the little moment. He's like, I've been studying him for so long that like he removed his mask and I can still see who he is.
Yes.
I love that.
I also find it
Um,
interesting that the very sick Bruce Wayne refers to both Batman and Bruce Wayne as a mask, which
mhm.
I think is interesting because this whole idea is because we're trying to break Batman with Bane, breaking Batman, he's also losing any sort of sense of identity,
Mhm.
mainly from the exhaustion.
Yeah.
Um, There's also an interlude with with Joker and Scarecrow.
Yep,
Um,
they're just fucking with the mayor. It's a pretty great plot line.
Scarecrow's eating potato chips. The Joker has donuts. Um, and
It's
they're
so
making him make phone calls.
that's all
Uh,
it is. It's so funny. Also, Poison Ivy has worked her way into this rich people gala, and I love that nobody recognizes her until she takes off the purple dress, and suddenly she's wearing green, and oh no, it's Poison Ivy. We should have known all along.
they should have known it all. Like, mind you, at this gala are Chandra, Bruce Wayne, Leslie Tompkins, and Lucius Fox.
Yes,
Between one of the four of you, you should have noticed this. Bruce, you
yes,
get a
but
pass because you need a nap.
yeah,
And
Bruce needs a nap. Lucius, they're not entirely clear on how much of Batman's life he knows. But come on, Leslie, baby
Leslie
Chandra,
knows.
yeah, Leslie does. Like you can't get away from that one. Um, anyway, but yeah, so she hypnotizes hypnotizes everybody there. Um,
Mainly the men, because
yeah, and
Bruce
she takes.
pretends to be a zombie. Um, I love her
Uh,
quip of, until then, enjoy some group nap therapy.
and so she takes them all away because Bruce is pretending to be a zombie. He sneaks off and he gets into his Batman costume and he fights off all these zombies that she's making, and that's about it.
But it's a great fun issue.
Yeah, oh
Um,
yeah, it's nice.
I love the design of sort of the zombies she's under
Oh
control of
yeah, with
for a
those like green
while,
splotches all over them. Yeah,
implying like plant growth,
yeah.
um, and stuff.
All right.
Um,
Shall we move on?
yeah, but
All
I
right.
also I really like this just sort of campy appearance from Poison Ivy just in general. Like,
Oh
it's
yeah, it's really
nice.
nice. Yeah.
Uh,
We have Detective 662 then with a beautiful cover.
this is a
Horrifying
Sam
cover.
Keith cover. Um,
Oh God, I didn't even realize that.
yeah. See, what's
Yeah.
nice about, I don't know if it's in your editions, but in the Omni,
Oh yeah. I didn't even realize it says the top on mine, right? Yeah.
yeah. Well, also on the back pages for mine, we it gives you just the full rundown of who did the cover art on
Cool.
the opposite side of the cover.
There's a
Uh,
little thing in mine that says it just says cover up by Sam Keith, and I somehow have not looked at that
yeah,
before.
I'm glad they get credits, because
Yeah.
those, credit your artist, people.
Yes. Seriously. And especially right now in an age where, well, I mean, in this collected edition, they're collecting an age where we didn't credit individual cover artists on the inside of comics. So like, it's important to have that on
This
the
is
front
true.
here, I think.
What is it with comics and its genuinely sordid history with not ever crediting the people who worked on them? Like,
Yeah, I
because
don't
we
know,
have the
man.
time where like the only credit you'd get for like a Batman or Superman would be Bob Kane or Siegel and Schuster, and
Yeah,
not the fact that necessarily sometimes this issue wasn't Siegel, or Bob Kane barely wrote a damn thing. Um,
yeah, exactly. But
uh,
that's a can of worms for another day. Let's get into this.
Okay,
We
the
follow
opening
up
of
on
this issue actually took me aback, because I'm like, yeah, we're moving along great. It's like, oh, we're back with the Riddler.
yeah,
Um,
right. Like I feel like I don't know why. I think because the ventriloquist and Dr. Flanders plot lines started within the main Knightfall arc, like they feel sort of natural when they pop up for a page in random issues. But here it's like we're doing those random pages before Riddler's main plot line here, which I
yeah,
find
well,
really odd.
which, you would think with the prelude issues that I read, it wouldn't feel as odd, because the Riddler had, a couple issues devoted to him there with the whole Venom plot, and he was having a whole thing there. But it still feels really jarring. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Um,
I don't know, because it's like he's characterized well, and it's
yeah. And this is the issue where he mostly takes center stage. This is also where we end our Dr. Flanders stuff, where he's on another talk show promoting his book, and Riddler is like one of the audience members, and he like takes everybody there hostage with a fake bomb. So I find that
we
kind of
also get a great scene between Tim and Alfred, which is just
yeah.
a little moment of
Mm.
Tim being like, right, Gotham Park Zoo, because it's on Firefly's list, while working out with one of those punching bags, because well, Bruce isn't talking to him.
Yep.
Bruce is making all
Um,
the wrong moves.
yeah. This is also the issue where Bruce finally takes down Firefly within this one.
Not before
Um,
being caught the fuck on fire.
yeah, as he does so well. I have a funny little story about On Fire Bruce if we have the time.
Ooh.
I was watching, oh, many years ago. I was watching Batman Begins when my little sister was still very young. I think she was like 1 or 2. She was very little, and she didn't say much, but she would catch on to like songs when she was a little kid. And I was watching Batman Begins, and there's the scene in there where Scarecrow lights Bruce on fire as
Yeah.
Batman, and he's lit on fire. He jumps out the window. He falls down the building. And I think my little sister was around when I was watching it, and she was like 1 or 2 years old, and she started singing "Happy Birthday" because she associated the fire with a
Birthday
candle on a birthday
candles.
cake. So
That is adorably dark.
yeah, yeah,
Someone
very
write
funny.
that. Listen, if one of the writers of Batman are listening to this podcast by chance, can you write that into a story?
Oh yeah, I don't know why. Just fun little story there. Anytime I think of Batman on fire, that's the only thing that comes to my mind. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. I think we covered most of what we want to here. Like I said, fake bomb with the Riddler.
Um,
Oh my God, this scene comes out of nowhere. I forgot about this. The Huntress shows up for like 2 pages.
yeah. So I noted it. I'm like the Huntress is here. Um,
I
I'm
didn't even.
guessing is
Okay,
this still?
here's how random it is. I didn't even write it in my notes. It's here for 2 pages. She fights off some thugs, and that's literally it.
So she doesn't come back and appear later on. I thought
I can't even remember, to be honest. I don't know
I
if he comes
thought
back later
maybe
on.
she would have something to do with Night Quest or Night's End, especially with just the fact that Dixon and Mensch are aware of the larger Bat family at this point.
Yeah, I honestly forget because it's been a while since I've actually read them. But maybe she shows up later on. I'm not sure. At the very least, she's not in the rest of the 600 odd pages in this volume. So
Yes,
I don't know.
yeah, um, and
Anyway,
the
but yeah,
whole, but yeah, this is it also ends on one of our more defeated Bruce
yeah.
Waynes, where he is
Well,
just
which is especially important going into our next issue, which is Batman 496. Um, and
and at this point
I'm
we're
so glad Jim
getting there.
Apato's on this one. I'm so glad Jim Apato's on this one.
Yes,
This is such a special issue for him to draw, I think. Um, the main draw here, of course, being I think one of the first times since probably Lonely Place of Dying that we're bringing up Jason in a significant way in the plot at least. Um, Joker and Scarecrow still like fucking with the mayor. Get
and
to
it's
get Batman's attention.
we open the real proper with a genuinely funny scene between these two characters.
Mhm.
Uh, not before um, Bullock, Montoya, and the bomb squad go to the mayor's mansion. Bullock is just gonna go charging in, so Bruce has to save his dumb ass um, from an explosion. Um,
Mhm.
we also have this image of the Joker in an ice cream truck.
Yes. And he gives like an ice cream cone to this like ticket booth or I guess was it what is it where is it? I forget what these things are called. I'm so stupid.
A toll booth?
A toll booth. That's it. Thank you. Oh my God. He gives the ice cream cone to this dude at the toll booth, and he just sticks it upside down, and the ice cream melts in his hand, and it's just funny. And then it explodes because of course we got to kill the guy then. It's just funny. Uh, but yeah, Joker and Scarecrow have been making a lot of noise with the mayor, so they get Batman's attention. Batman speeds over there, um, only to get hit with a massive dose of fear toxin, which makes
And
him hallucinate Jason Todd because Joker's around and Aparo gets to redraw some panels from Death in the Family, and it's a really great sequence because this is already a Bruce that is really fucked up from all of these events that have come in the multiple issues before this. And here, Joker is right in front of him, and he's being reminded of Jason.
and
And
it's great. And what's interesting though is how it parallels how Bruce and the Joker are sort of set up in this issue. As the Joker's just doing funny chaos and is being genuinely hilarious, while
mhm,
we have these honestly heart-wrenching flashbacks. Like,
yeah,
my
yeah,
God, they're heart-wrenching. Like
yeah.
he has like a baby rattle that he's terrorizing the mayor with, like it's a rattlesnake, which is hilarious when he's just grabbed from the back of the neck. And all Bruce can say is Jason Todd.
And just repeatedly say his name. and leads to this great full page where he punches him out, and Scarecrow then shoots a bazooka. Where did he get a bazooka from?
They stole some arms.
And so, important to note, they're in the sewers, near the sewers. I
Near
don't
the
know.
sewers.
And they blow a hole in the wall, and the place starts to flood. And Joker and Scarecrow escape, and Batman takes the mayor and escapes with him. And
And
that's
he's
the end
just
of the
pissed.
issue.
He's really pissed that he has to save the mayor.
Yeah, because he knows how corrupt he is. Ah,
And the
so
only
good.
thing on his mind right now, because of the fear gas, is Jason,
Hmm.
who's been dead for a couple of years at this point,
Oh
obviously.
yeah, I think there was a really funny thing in here. I forget exactly what it was. There was an inner monologue. Oh yeah, here yeah, it's on that full page actually. Just a boy, but forever gone, and I just had to laugh to myself.
Um,
But yeah, I guess that's the end of that. We go into Detective Comics 663.
and
Another great cover here.
and with this, we are getting so close to the actual backbreaking. Like,
Hmm.
and the way it's paced is so well done that we're building ever so slowly, but we keep it moving
Yeah,
into we where we know Bruce is going to be taken down.
yeah.
Uh,
So Bruce gets out with the mayor. He escapes with him. Uh, he gets out of the sewer tunnel. Gets him
and
back to.
we have this great inner monologue of Bruce here, of just just this like about the mayor's sort of at his limits, and I ignore mine, um,
Mhm.
which is not what you want to be doing this issue because of what's happening. Um,
Indeed.
like he knocks the mayor out so he can get him through the service tunnel and then out up through a manhole. And you honestly think this could be where Bruce ends? Like for just a
Mhm.
moment? Because you have the mayor, can't breathe underwater, knocked out. Bruce is trying to get him out,
Mhm.
and he's having trouble turning just sort of the wheel that'll release the manhole cover. Um,
Mhm.
out near the harbor, um, which happens to be where Gordon Bullock and Montoya are investigating.
Mhm.
Uh, and Bruce can't even stay. Like he makes it to the roof.
Yeah, and then just drops off the mayor and gets out of there. And then I love this little moment here where this mayor that Bruce literally considered letting die just a second ago, the mayor looks on at Batman in admiration. And I don't know, I just love that. Ugh, so good. All right, this is it. Oh, actually, before that, I do love that we follow up once again on the ventriloquist. He finds Scarface, who has been painted up to look like the Joker.
Yeah, and locked in a safe.
It's so good. Um, anyway, but yeah, Batman then fights off Bane's three men. I always
Um,
forget the one guy, the shorter guy. What's his name?
it's Trog,
Trog,
Zombie, and
Zombie, and
Bird.
Bird. Yeah, I,
Um,
I always forget Trog for some reason. But Zombie's always great. I love Zombie's design. Um,
I mean, it doesn't help that Trog is the least interesting, like design wise, and kind of has the least to do.
yeah,
Whereas you have, Bird who can gather information and is a formidable
yeah.
fighter.
And also,
Z-
Zombie was there from the very beginning of Bane's story in Vengeance of Bane, so I think
yeah.
he's easy to remember because of that. But yeah, so
Plus,
he fights off all three of them.
Zombie's really good at throwing knives, which is always cool. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
especially for a Batman story where it's like, Batman does a lot of fighting close quarters, and with knife throwers, you can't. Like,
yeah.
so it's great, and it's really well drawn. There isn't a lot of dialogue from this point forward in the issue either. It's
Oh yeah, it's mostly just fighting between the Batman against the three of them. He fights all three of them. He's still fucked up in the end. He
he
doesn't
ends up
find it. He
he
doesn't
ends up
find out where
saying
Bane is staying. He
it
doesn't.
feels good to almost be fighting at one point. But yeah,
Mhm.
he crashes through a warehouse window where he and Bird end up fighting.
Mhm.
And Bird's just monologuing. Um, and you eventually have Bruce screaming for Bane. It's like he said I would scream his name, all a blur from here, shadows and dark. And he makes it home. Um, He says, home, can't wear the costume, upstairs. Promised Alfred. Where is Alfred? I could have put up with his sarcasm in exchange for some help up the stairs. And he pushes aside the grandfather clock,
Sees
sees
Alfred
Alfred.
unconscious on the floor, and Bane is there waiting for him. And
It's I left him alive. It is not your underlings I want. The voice. It's him. It is
it is
you.
you. Oh, it's so good. So good. And then we get into the big one. This is Batman 497. The cover gives it what gives away it all, but that doesn't make the read any less interesting.
Oh, and
Um
it's fascinating. One, so I didn't realize the context in which Bruce had his back broken.
mm.
I didn't realize it was in Wayne fucking Manor.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No,
The cover literally shows it in the Batcave.
I thought it was in the Batcave.
Well, yeah, I mean, it ends up in the Batcave in the end.
No, I didn't realize he infiltrated like the Manor. The Manor.
Oh yeah,
I was
yeah.
like at this point, I'm like, wait, Alfred's unconscious. This isn't good. Where's Tim? Has somebody called Dick Grayson for backup? Because we need to call Dick Grayson for backup at this point.
Mhm.
You idiots. Because Azrael, not much of a help.
Mhm.
Uh,
There's not many. No, there's literally one adapted version of Bane that does the home invasion scene, which I think is one of the most important aspects of this story is the fact that he attacks Bruce at first, not in the Batcave, but in Wayne Manor. And that is in Arkham Origins. I know I told you before that like Origins is like the definitive Bane adaptation, at least character wise and what he does. But I just love it so much.
well, it's also just clearly it's important. Like this, you have to do you have to do this. Also, okay, I will say the team for this issue is almost the perfect team for doing this.
Oh, you have an all-star team here. It's Doug Mensch, Jim Aparo, Dick Giordano, Adrian Roy, Richard Starkings. You really could Denny O'Neil as an editor too. Like what else could you ask for? It's pretty perfect.
I love how the inner monologue opens. Feels so bad, I want to die, and now he's here in Wayne Manor, ready and willing to grant my wish. And our
Oh
title is The Broken Bat. This is just a great issue.
yeah.
And
With
like,
and much in the same way as like Superman 75, there's not that much to actually talk about. They
uh,
talk for a while, they fight. Bruce puts the costume back on, and once the fight begins, there's barely any dialogue. It's just
yes.
watching this
Uh,
brutal showdown as Bruce reflects on the events leading up to this.
I do love this is the first time Bruce and Bane actually get to talk for like this is the first time they've met, really.
I mean, they
Um,
had the encounter at the end of Vengeance of Bane.
yeah, but like this time, like you really get to put into stark contrast how little Bruce actually knows.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so we get caught up on that Bane, the venom is directly injected into his bloodstream. The way Bruce is drawn on like this second page, and he looks terrified.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and we find out, Bruce has to learn Bane's backstory, but also you really get a stark contrast, just like how much of a mythic figure the Batman has been for Bane. Um, it's
Hmm.
why he demands Bruce put the mask back on
Yeah.
before the fight actually begins.
Hmm.
Um, and we see the manor being essentially being destroyed quite a bit in the fight. Like Alfred is basically told to get away because he's already in danger. Um, we are intercut with flashbacks of a lot of this sort of the mini fights all the way from the prelude leading up to this.
Yeah.
Alfred believes he's got to get help.
He crawls out of there as the fight continues. Bane kicks Bruce down into the Batcave, and Batman's not even putting up a fight at this point. Like he knows he cannot win this. There's this great little page panel too. I think it's on here, page 9. I have it in my notes here of the broken bat signal. And
Yes.
it sort of just like cracked light in the sky. So good.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what's also interesting is on that same page, you have Bruce trying to just punch Bane in the gut, and it does nothing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
um,
Which I have to question actually at this point. Did Bane cheat?
um, I'd say no because he's a villain.
True.
Like, he is a villain.
But Bane is a character that prides himself on the fact that, his entire life has been dedicated to honing himself physically and mentally. Um, and he relies on other people to wear Batman down just so he can come in for the kill.
Well, he also, has planned and psychologically tortured
Oh
Batman.
yeah, yeah, and I was just proposing the question more than anything because I agree. Like I don't think he really cheated because Bane using other people intellectually outsmarted Batman before he physically took him down.
He's
Um,
also the one, in charge of the plan. He also there. Let's be honest. He knows Batman's identity, but he
mhm.
doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is.
No. Mm-mm.
On page 10 of the comic, media page after, we get a near whole page of flashbacks of
Mhm.
the Joker, um, sort of in shattered. And I think it's important that that gets a full page
Yeah,
because
from the initial breakout. Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily match the initial breakout. It more closely matches the Joker in Death of the Family.
Oh wait, you're right.
Death in the
I didn't
Family.
even realize that.
Like, we're
Except for the fact that Two Face is there.
yeah, Two Faces here, and it's clearly meant to be the breakout. But we're also, reflecting an important part of this is the lingering pain from the death of Jason Todd.
Mhm.
Um,
The driving force behind a lot of late 80s, early 90s Batman comics.
for good reason, because
Oh yeah, yeah. It's kind of a big deal.
one of the issues with the plot of Death in the Family is that we don't actually mourn Jason Todd
Yep.
because we
It's
can't.
issues that come long after that actually give it any meaning.
We also
But
only see Alfred getting out of the manor at this point, really, and all he
mhm,
can just shout is to shout Tim, and it's
yeah.
implied that he runs to
Um
Tim's estate
yeah.
to get him.
Another great note that I have here is that at one point Bane kicks over the giant penny and it falls on Bruce. Which that
Yes,
should be insta death right there. Bane doesn't need to break his back, but
I think
goddamn.
it's implied that that's what shatters his legs.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yep.
he's
That is
missing a
insta.
call from Chandra,
Mhm.
um,
And
as
then also Bane like kicks Bruce into the case holding Jason's costume.
which
Uh,
I think that's what actually breaks him. Like,
mm,
that's the final breakage. Like,
yeah.
that's the this is terrible because we at this point that's on page 15, so there's still like 7 or so pages of the comic left,
Hmm.
um, and like before the actual breaking,
Yeah.
and like Bane is disappointed because Bane wasn't. I don't think Bane was anticipating
Just
such a
how defeated he would be.
yeah. Because again,
Um,
he heard stories of Batman, and
which I think is the key thing also why Bane chooses not to kill him in the end. I think Bane always intended to kill Bruce, but because this is hardly a fair fight and Bane realizes that, he simply breaks him. That's it. That's what he
I
says. I
also
will simply break you.
based on sort of the timeline of Vengeance of Bane, I'd imagine like the horror Batman stories he heard were pre-Dick Grayson Robin Batman stories.
Oh, probably.
Like, so he had no idea about, Batman having a sidekick and being more than just an evil symbol of like an evil force of terror in
And
his
how Bruce
mind.
has softened so much over the years. Bane first heard these stories when he was a very young man. Um, yeah, years have passed, and this is a very different Batman that he's fighting, and
Um,
it's so good.
and I
Um,
will say, like with Superman 75, the last couple of pages building up the actual breaking, and then that one page panel
the
is
fact that it's not a speech
intense.
bubble either. The words are there, and you know it's a continuation of what Bane is saying, but the full line leading up to it. is I am Bane and I could kill you, but death would only end your agony and silence your shame. Instead, I will simply break you. And broken and done, and he leaves Bruce there. And
And at this point, I
oh,
was like, oh, we're not done with this. We have quite a lot to
how
see.
late in the collection did you think the breaking came?
I thought it came probably close to the end.
Hmm.
Like I, it's what makes me sort of nervous about Night Quest
I mean, rightfully so.
because like there's a lot like of plot development after the breaking that is interesting and fascinating, and we're obviously going to keep talking about it, but like as of here, like this could be the end.
Mhm.
Um uh but that moves us into
To
Detective Comics
I don't know why I can't say that word tonight. Detective Comics. Jesus. Anyway,
664.
664.
um
We open strong. Bane lets Gotham know what he has done. He holds Batman's broken body above the city, throws it down, makes sure it hits multiple buildings before it lands on the ground in front of them. Bloody, and he may as well be dead.
yeah.
um,
um
yeah,
like
really, really dark stuff here.
and the rest of this issue is essentially just chaos, like
Mhm.
really well done chaos, because like the police are on the scene. Montoya's like, they're like, right, we need to stop any sort of violence that's going to break down because Batman was just taken down. You
Yeah.
know.
But Alfred, Tim, and Jean Paul Valley, they arrive, with an ambulance. They pretend to take Batman away, and they're gonna help him out. The police very quickly, of course, find out that it was a fake ambulance, and Gordon at first thinks that he was like stolen or whatever, and or no, Montoya thinks that he's stolen, and Gordon
Yeah.
is like maybe it's just one of his friends. Um, but yeah, Tim is unnaturally very concerned for his buddy. Um, and we
You
all
have Jean Paul Valley's the one driving the ambulance. Alfred is trying to just administer whatever the hell he can. Um, uh, and it's Alfred's the only one with a clear head. It's like, we will return to the cave and stabilize him until we can come up with a plausible story to explain how Bruce Wayne might have suffered these injuries. Are we
Mhm.
clear on that, Mr. Tim? Because Tim wants to take him to a hospital.
Yeah.
Like, and that's,
I gotta know, did your mind flash to Hush at all during this? Because they do the Hush thing eventually, which I
they
think is kind
do.
of funny.
I didn't, mainly
Oh,
because I
okay,
was just so engrossed in this issue in general.
fair enough.
Um,
Fair enough.
like, like these two issues are great, and it's a great way to follow up.
Hmm.
Um,
We do also catch up with Scarecrow and Joker briefly. Not much there, but oh yeah, Joker like knocks out Scarecrow, but that's about
Turns
it.
out Joker's immune to fear toxin, which
Which
makes
makes so much
sense.
sense. Yeah, it makes so much sense.
Um,
um,
this is
but
this is their this is their falling out. So the couple has to break up.
yeah,
Um,
Alfred decides that he needs this drug to help out Bruce. I forget what it's called.
um,
It starts with a D. I can't remember
yeah.
what it is. I didn't have it noted. Um,
It's
but Tim,
it's called Decadron, which is
all right, Jacob,
base.
tell me, is it a real thing?
I don't think so. It's
No.
it's a
Okay.
fantasy drug, basically to repair his spine fast and
Cool.
stabilize him.
Tim and John Paul go out to go get it. They get the help of Gordon to do it.
And I love, this is the first time sort of like our Bat family sort of in like Gordon, Sarah, Robin, and Jean Paul are actually working together and
Mhm.
like have a united front, mainly to save Bruce's life.
Yeah.
Because part of the thing is, even before the story, the relationships were strained and splintering. Uh,
Mhm.
we
However,
also
meanwhile, but yeah, to cut it all off randomly and to end our ventriloquist plotline, Scarface and Sacco begin fighting for supremacy, and Scarface kills Sacco.
go, and so and they both have guns. So
They both
like
have guns. I don't know how he's doing it.
It's like, wait, yeah, which is a very good question. So, I mean, for
It's
Sako, it makes sense because Sako's a sock. So, like,
yeah.
Sako's
You can
mouth
have a
is
point.
holding the gun with the
Yeah.
trigger.
But literally, how and Scarface is the one that wins too. He kills Sako, and you can see a hole. You can see like blood coming from Wesker's left hand, which is Sako. And I love it. It's so funny.
Um,
um. Anyway,
yeah.
so they get the Decadron and they bring it back to Alfred and they administer it to Bruce, and then and
Well,
then,
that's the all we can do is the hardest part, the waiting.
which is a really effective ending, isn't it?
It's a great ending, but then.
So Showcase 93, number 7 and 8 are what comes up next. And we
So
are
I thought these would be like tie-ins, maybe, but they're not. They have
no.
numbers
Are
for
you
the
ready for
Knightfall
this?
sequence.
Okay, I'm gonna describe it to you, try to describe it to you the same way I described it to my brother upon reread of this issue. I was like, oh my god, I forgot how stupid this thing was. We pick up exactly where we left off. We're waiting for the Decadron to kick in. And as they're all standing around, quiet and Tim's angry, and he's like, "No, this is all my fault because of a thing that happened with Two-Face a couple weeks ago."
3 weeks
And
ago, which is even dumber in hindsight, right? Because I read the preludes.
uh-huh.
This shit isn't in the preludes. Like it's also just objectively not Tim's fault.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
this
these
has nothing
issues,
to do with him.
these issues, we do have to give the silver lining. Klaus Janson does the art.
Klaus Janson does the fucking art, and he's so good, so fucking good. I love him.
Yeah, he
I'm
is
sure you know
great.
him, know that he's known for the Daredevil stuff with Frank Miller.
Yes,
Yeah.
as well as
Uh,
inking Dark Knight Returns.
yes.
Uh,
A truly phenomenal artist. And you can see that here. But
I love the
that's
way he
about the only
draws
thing
Two-Face's
this has going
origin.
for it.
Um,
Yeah, we redo Two-Face's origin. It becomes a very just paint by numbers plot line. Two-Face versus Batman and Robin, and
I love that he goes after an Apatosaurus because Apatosauruses were originally called um, Brontosauruses, but that's a misnomer paleontologically. So it's a two-faced name. Ha ha ha.
ah,
Um, but yeah, like it's a flashback, and it
it has nothing to do with anything. Like,
no, okay, so this is Showcase 93. Obviously, that's like a mini series of
yeah,
showcasing different characters, right?
yeah, yeah. So this is only one story of I think 3 or 4 that were included in each issue.
I imagine it's like 12. Yeah, I imagine it's also like a 12 issue like mini series
Yeah.
of the year.
Mhm.
Um, and like, yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Like the first issue ends on a very nice cliffhanger. Um, of Two-Face flipping a coin and sending a car right into the river.
Mhm.
Um, but you
Glenn
don't.
Fabry does the second cover though, so that's nice.
Yes.
I
Um,
love the way he draws Two-Face on that one. Really great stuff.
but like,
Um,
it's fine. But like,
yeah, yeah. And then also, and the funniest thing about it all is when the whole thing ends and you're done with the flashbacks and everything. Bruce does wake up from his injuries and he turns over to Robin and goes, "Robin, about Two-Face. You you
you
did
did
right.
right.
It wasn't bad judgment. Not at all." And that's like it's so
I,
weird.
I, I like
It's so
the.
weird. I guarantee you, if these issues didn't have the little Nightfall banner on the top of their covers, they would not be included in this.
They wouldn't. Or I imagine yeah, like honestly, the Shadow of the Bad issues deserve to be numbered more than these do.
Yeah, the Shadow of the
Like,
Bat numbers are issues aren't numbered, and it's so weird.
um,
Um.
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. We don't need to talk about those anymore.
Yeah, because so we go back to the actual story proper
Yeah,
with Batman
Batman
498.
498, and I gotta talk about this cover by Kelly Jones. That I don't I don't know how to describe this cover. I don't think I have the words to describe it really, but I just adore everything about it. Um, I don't know. I love the insanely muscular way that Bane is drawn. Him ripping the cape and cowl above Catwoman, the little gay cat silhouette to the side. It's pretty great. Um, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that briefly.
Yeah, it's an interesting cover. It also kind of like it finishes sort of the trilogy of breaking Batman, basically.
Mhm.
Of
And then 2 issues of Showcase, and the first speech bubble of this issue tells you all you need to know from those issues. The drug worked. That's
yeah.
all. It's Robin saying the drug worked, and that's all you need.
So you can cut out
You do
the
not need to read Showcase. You absolutely do not need to read
like
Showcase to be
honestly,
great.
the showcases are why for me this book is a 9 out of 10 and not very close to a 10.
That's
Just
fair.
because, like, yeah, I have some issues, but like this is a really damn good story. But those 2 issues really stop it dead in its tracks.
Yeah, I
Um,
gotcha.
uh, because so what's great is now we actually have to focus on what comes next for Vane because like he won.
Hmm.
So and like this isn't like Death of Superman where the villain was killed in a self-sacrifice. No, the villain outright won.
Yeah.
So he's muscling in on Gotham City's basically crime families. Like
Yeah.
he comes in and just, is called a freak,
Hmm.
so kills the head of this crime family
Yep.
and starts taking over the gangs to run the city.
Hmm.
Um, all intercut with Bruce basically saying like, I've been destroyed. I can no longer be Batman.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, it's a really cool issue. Also, this is where we do the Hush thing. Well, I mean, or I guess Hush is doing the Nightfall thing, but the plan to come up with the cover story that Bruce Wayne crashed one of his cars. They throw it off a cliff, and I don't know, I think it's funny. It's just a
uh,
small moment of levity in this issue. They destroy this one car, they throw it off a cliff to come up with the cover story, and to have Chandra look after Bruce then, and to see what's going on, which is funny. Is she a physical doctor? Like, is she? Like, I thought she was just a therapist.
so here's the issue. She's a holistic doctor, which is a funny way of often saying a quack,
Mm.
because she is fairly established as doing alternative medicine,
Mm.
which, yeah, I don't love that. Like, you could have just made her an actual doctor.
Fair
Like,
enough.
if she was a psychiatrist, she would have had to have basically gone through med school, so, and she would have all the qualifications of an actual doctor, so, or make her have also doubled as a surgeon, and it would have worked better. Um, but yeah,
Anyway, we go over to Catwoman then. We get the scene between Bane and Catwoman. Throughout
I
this.
love Catwoman's like I love both of Catwoman's appearances in this part of the arc.
Hmm.
Because she has one later, which is just
Oh
sublime.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting. I don't know. I really like it here. We see Chandra catch up with Bruce here. Um, what else? That's most of the issue then.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, and then Bruce decides to give Jean-Paul Valley the mantle of the Bat, which is the most misguided decision that Bruce makes throughout this whole thing.
yeah. Now I
Like,
will say, at least they lampshade the fact that they could call Dick.
well, yeah. So they're like, okay, why don't you just ask Dick instead? And Bruce is like, no, he's his own man now. And it's like, okay, but Jean-Paul Valley is like half a man.
Yeah, like you have
So,
already seen he is a bit unstable. Yeah, he was able to control his conditioning in some of the prelude issues, but like he's violent. Now, I do think they had no way of knowing exactly how violent he would get almost immediately when he's given power.
Mhm.
Um, because his fall from grace happens already. Like, it's quick. Um, but yeah, like they give him the mantle of the bat, and he's already like, it's like I mean, you think I could be as good as him? No one's as good as him, and then suddenly you're wrong. I'll be better,
Yeah,
and it's like what?
and we got a scene where Batman and Robin, well, Jean and Tim meet with Gordon at the
Oh,
end
in my
there.
notes, I did not call him Batman. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
called him Azrael,
yeah.
Jean Paul.
I've been switching back and forth between Jean Paul and Azrael. You can't, like, especially when you know it's temporary. When the whole arc is just doing okay, we're gonna do Death of Superman but longer and Batman, you have a hard time saying, okay, well, this could actually be Batman. Unlike with Death of Superman, when they did Reign of the Superman, like they played around with the reader's expectations. They were like, okay, one of these are going to be Superman. Trust me.
Yeah,
Um,
this is just it's just Azrael. Um, yeah.
Anyway,
Uh,
that this is Detective Comics 665 with the funniest cover here. I love this.
Wait,
Um,
hang on a second. I have to quickly flip to it because the way the Omni does it is it does the Shadow of the Bat issues before 665.
oh, what? That's
Yeah.
stupid. That's stupid. Um,
Um,
anyway, this is the funniest cover here because I don't know, I just love it. The psychotic Jean-Paul Batman standing above this dude with a piece of wood with some nails in it. The longest Batman years that Kelly Jones has ever drawn, and to go with it, some long ass like I don't even know what the actual name of those are on his gloves. The
the spiky bits.
spiky bits, yeah.
I am
I
calling
love
them
it.
spiky bits.
They are the spiky bits.
Also, like he looks like a vampire.
He does,
Like,
yes.
hmm, you already know this was a bad idea.
Indeed. But yeah, honestly, I don't have any notes on this issue. It's just it's I don't know. It's all right.
I think it's good. It's good at showing how brutal uh, Jean-Paul Valley is,
hmm
um, and the fact that like he's just immediately he has power, so he's like, "Fuck you, Tim.
Yeah.
I don't need you anymore." Basically, which you feel bad for Tim, like,
Oh, absolutely.
and it only gets worse. Um, but yeah, Bruce is trying to be on his own, and he's like, right, I'm going to try to go to Jack Drake's house, and that's where Chandra is with Jack Drake, who is kidnapped.
Yes,
Like,
and Bruce in a wheelchair goes there and kicks some ass, and I don't know why he had to give it the mantle.
honestly, yeah.
He's doing okay already.
Um, but yeah, and you again, you see like it's so quite sad because he can't kick enough ass, so he eventually falls out of the wheelchair, and he just can think, I failed them all. And Alfred's the one to find him because, of course, Alfred's parent senses were tingling,
Mhm.
and he heard him leave. He heard his son leave the house.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah. A lot of scenes of Jean Paul chasing down some mobsters in this and fighting them off,
Terrorizing them, and
and that's about it.
that's it.
Yeah, not much to talk about this one. All right, so now you got to flip back, I guess, to
To
Shadow of the
Shadow of the
Bat.
Bat.
Shadow of
This
the
is
Bat number 16.
the God of
So this is
Fear.
the God of Fear. So this is our first ever work we've read by Alan Grant, um, who just passed away last year and is responsible for a lot of great '90s Batman creations because he was pretty much given almost complete creative freedom on Shadow of the Bat. Um,
So
and
he could
yeah,
basically just write whatever the heck he wanted.
oh, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure, and this is just a working theory I've had for a couple years now, that like Shadow of the Bat exists because they wanted to do Death of Superman but with Batman, but they didn't have enough titles to spread around. So they're like, well, here's Shadow of the Bat. You can have that. And because they didn't quite know what to actually do with it outside of Knightfall, Alan Grant could just got the chance to do whatever the hell he wanted, which is pretty great. So
Which is great. It also means that there's probably like a lot of smaller stories since it's one writer.
yeah, oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah,
But anyway, all right. So this is our first ever Anarchy story. Were you familiar with Anarchy at all
I
as a
was
character?
not. I
Okay.
don't know what his deal is.
Hmm. Um, I forget because there are multiple anarchies. I forget which one this is supposed to be. Um, but just well, it's what it says on the tin. He's Anarchy. He's a guy that believes in
And
anarchy.
chaos.
There's not much more to say beyond that. But there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with the character. Another one that actually appears in Arkham Origins, oddly enough. So yeah,
Yeah, so
Arkham Origins is the one where they were like, oh, we use all the big ones in Asylum and City, and so they just stuffed everybody else in Origins, and it's pretty cool.
so the plot of this one is as the title implies, a scarecrow story.
hmm
The scarecrow infiltrates his old university And he
Which
goes,
sounds a bit like that animated series episode that he first appears in.
yes. But what's funny is his alias is Professor Rance, which is just Crane with the C moved
It's so
before
good.
the E. I do love Brett Blevins does the art.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah, the art in these issues are it's so good.
the way he draws the Scarecrow, especially,
Hmm.
is amazing.
And as the
You
issues go on and just get like more and more chaotic, like, he really plays around with some of the layouts here.
yeah. You also already get to see more of Jean-Paul Valley as Batman, who is the Batman for
Hmm.
all of this.
Yeah. Actually,
Um,
question: do we want to just cover Shadow of the Bat, like these three issues, as like one big thing instead of each
we
getting
may
like?
as well because it's a
Yeah,
nice three-parter.
yeah. It's
Um,
16, 17, and 18. So
yeah,
sorry,
so
continue.
um, he is again pushing pushing Tim away, and basically at this point, Tim is no longer part of no one else is really part of our the Bat family in general.
Hmm.
Um, but there's also the character of Anarchy, who is terrorizing criminals and basically wants to kill Batman for not the most fleshed out reasons. Um, but what's really interesting is the Scarecrow.
I
Basically,
mean, typically it's Batman is law and order, and but still taking the law into his own hands, and
yeah.
yeah. So sorry, go
Uh,
on.
but what's really interesting is the Scarecrow basically gets a bunch of people to sign up for a psychological experiment in these headsets in an amazing scene, in an amazing sequence where the son of his first victim recognizes him, who
Hmm.
happens to be a student, and he just uses fear gas to subdue people, and then has them dress up as scarecrows, uh, to basically do crimes throughout the city. And that's the plot. And it is a really interesting and really fun plot. Like,
Hmm.
it's a diversion,
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely. It nothing. It's not quite like the rest of the collection. It doesn't even necessarily line up with where Scarecrow was at when we left him off with Joker. But it's just a really cool little story on its own. Um,
Like the title comes from the fact that he wants to be the god of fear. He wants to sort of make himself a god, which um, I noted here is a very a very very interesting sort of angle to go on with sort of how Azrael's taking the law into his own hands.
mhm.
Also, throughout the investigation, both Azrael and Anarchy aren't really able to figure it out. They're both kind of shit. Um,
Yeah.
like they don't get what's happening. They only do it. They only end up figuring it out because they unmask one of the Scarecrow kids, and he's a child. Um, and you also have the idea that yeah, Jean Paul Valley nearly murdered a child who's been brainwashed.
Mhm.
Um,
And even with that knowledge, you get the feeling that like Jean Paul would not have thought twice about it.
yeah, which is again, it's a great way to show the danger, and I'm very
Hmm.
glad it's
But
included.
once again, it feels a bit too early to be incorporating those elements into the character. And
Honestly,
it's not an issue here in this collection because it's still an early concept, an early idea, and you don't need to like it doesn't feel like an issue until you're going to get into the next collection and you're just going to keep doing that same thing when
yeah.
we've already learned this
See,
lesson.
what I believe might have actually happened is they might have thought it feels like this might have been artificially extended, right?
Mm.
Because
Almost definitely.
just because like I do know that Knight's End had uses way more like all the bat adjacent titles. It even adds
Mhm.
in Legends of the
Oh yeah,
Dark Knight
to get it out in like the shortest amount of months. Yeah.
because they had the big 0 hour crisis in time that was going to be happening. And even
Mhm.
then,
It still got cut off. Yeah.
it got cut off and overran in because I've looked at the issue list that we're covering, and even in the omnibus, there each of the series has about one issue that skipped because that's a 0 hour tie-in.
Yeah, yeah. I think I actually have one of the 0 hour tie-ins. It's Batman 510, I
Yeah,
think.
I think that's the
510,
number.
whatever it is, or 511, somewhere around there. And the cover's actually kind of cool. It's if I remember correctly, I'm working from memory here. I think it's it was Batman, Robin, and Oracle looking at looking at Batgirl standing there, like, right in front of them.
Ooh,
Uh,
that's an interesting
yeah, it's a cool
concept.
cover. I think it was one of those issues that I got because of the cover, and
Yeah.
I didn't quite get what's going on in it, but
I also think it's definitely extended so much because when they originally, like in like 1995 is when they did trades for Nightfall
Mhm,
originally. They did Batman the Broken which is the first half of Nightfall,
mhm.
and then Who Rules the Night, the second half of Nightfall. They did then Night's End, and then they did Prodigal as four
And you know what?
volumes,
That should be the story.
skipping pretty much all of Night Quest, which
as as you should. Look, I don't
because
want to like paint your opinion too much before we even get there, but like you are already well aware of my problems with the things we have coming up.
yes, but like the God of Fear is a great three-part diversion to really establish Azrael as Batman on his own
Mhm.
and going too far and showing how flawed he is.
Yeah.
Like it serves a purpose. It fucking deserves numbering in the corners.
Yeah.
And the showcase issue's dope.
Indeed.
Um, um,
But anyway, we move
also, again,
into
art is
oh sorry.
brilliant. Like
Oh yeah,
Brett
the
Levin's
art
art
is
is just
easily. Oh yeah, I didn't even mention because I wanted to. Brian Stelfreeze on the covers. I really love those. They're
oh
so
yeah,
good.
they're very painted. They almost remind me of like novel covers. Um,
Yeah, yeah, genuinely. Yeah, they're
uh,
so good. Anyway, Batman 499 now. Another great Kelly Jones cover. Just we introduced the Azrael gloves in this issue, and which have like the spikes on and everything, but like Kelly Jones just draws way more spikes than should be there, and it's brilliant. Um,
uh,
Anyway, but we get into it. We're doing a lot of the same things that we were doing in our last detective issue. I think
yeah,
personally.
following up the um, following up the ideas of um, of Azrael going mad with power. I wrote Azrael's now a possessive dick
Hmm.
who designs his better bat suit. I will say actually for this issue, what's really worked with this is Bruce and Alfred's plot. Um,
Yeah, yeah. They first get contacted by Oracle, which is a fun little scene actually.
it's it,
Um,
well, well, even before that, one we get some of we're dealing with the fallout. Tim doesn't know his dad's been kidnapped. Um,
mhm.
But Bruce, because it's Bruce Wayne, I love that he doesn't stop working. He still tries. He's trying to be a detective. He's like, right,
Yeah,
what can I
yeah.
pull together? There's blood. What can I identify? Where can I go with this? Um, Bane finds out about the new Batman and is kind of pissed about this poser. Um, but then you have this Oracle scene, and my note here was Oracle cameo, and she's fucking pissed.
Yeah.
Uh, because he uses Oracle for information. First off, always great to see a Barbara Gordon cameo. Uh,
Hmm.
it just made me happy because I'm like, yes, finally, other characters who I know who we can explore on the side of our heroes. Um, and her words are just scathing. It's like I ask only that you use it wisely to get well, not worse. Uh, the chair is
Um,
difficult. I hope that you, unlike me, can find your way out of it. Goodbye. And then
Another
all
line you kind of have to chuckle with given modern comics.
yeah. But I mean again, let's be honest, that wasn't necessarily planned out because they had a great story. That was because they wanted Batgirl to be Batgirl in the new 52.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, it could be a great story. I have not read
It does.
Gail
Oh
Simone's
yeah,
Bat.
it's a great story, and it's Gail Simone, and of course it's great. But like, yeah, yeah. Anyway,
There's
some
both things can be
much
true.
later day for the podcast.
Yes.
Anyway.
We also get Jean Paul Valley designing his gloves and not being in control of himself and doing it.
Mhm.
Um,
And like seriously, is nobody fucking watching this guy?
well, no, because
Like,
he's pushed away Tim, and Bruce has now got himself in the works of I've got to find Tim's dad.
I
Um,
also love that like Bruce doesn't let Tim know what's going on. He just kind of fucks off and leaves on a plane and leaves Tim alone with the extremely dangerous Azrael. Like,
Also, remember, Bane is still out there. Like,
right? Like, what a again another horribly misguided decision on Bruce Wayne's end.
um,
um Anyway, we do get a pretty funny scene though, where Selena Kyle makes her way onto Bruce Wayne's private jet. And um I love this moment so much.
again, this is the other
First
great
off, in
Selena
a pretty
Kyle
long
appearance.
Halloween world, Bruce and Selena aren't terribly familiar with each other here,
No, they are
which is
not.
kind of funny. Um, but yeah, we get that scene. She like sneaks her way into like the bathroom at the back of the jet there, and only makes her way out of it once the plane is already taken off and is out of there. It's just a funny little scene. I like it.
It's great,
Um,
and we end the issue on just a very very sad moment of Tim finding his dad's missing. Not even Bruce left a note. Alfred left a note saying,
yeah.
"Timothy, have faith, lad. We will find him. Take care of Jean Paul." Alfred, mind
What
you,
a horribly misguided decision. Oh my god.
part of me thinks like, okay, it's at this point where they were told we have to extend this for more time
Yeah. And
because
you it shows. It really shows. We move into Detective Comics 666 then. And I just have to wonder how many muscles can Kelly Jones draw Bane with?
all of the muscles.
Like some of those shouldn't even be possible to exist. Like he's
But
also
the
not I don't
Venom,
even think he's also drawn like he's not even wearing his costume at this point. He just looks naked. Like
yes. But yeah, this is the devil you know, and this is another almost this is almost a filler issue because it's clear that they realize Batman 500 is going to be an event,
yeah,
right?
so they wanted to make it double length, and it's going to be the end of this big Bane arc that they're doing. Um, and so 666 is just kind of biding its time, which is a shame because you really could do some things, and you basically have the devil as Batman right
Yeah.
now.
Now
Like,
it does have its moments. I love the scene with Gordon, right?
yeah, oh yeah, oh, the scene with Gordon is so good. Yeah, yeah, that's like one of the only notes I have on this issue.
Because Gordon's giving this monologue about that they what have they learned from Bane Stooges? It's like, oh wait, we've blocked him for 24 hours. It's maximum security lockup, and put in a hurry. The governor wants them separated. I don't blame him, but my God, something wrong, Commissioner? You're still here. So usually I turn around and you're gone. I wasn't certain we were finished talking. I never stopped you before. I'll be going then.
It's so good.
My one thing is ahem, Mr. Dixon, Mr. Mensch, Gordon's not an idiot. Why doesn't he immediately clock that this is not the Batman he knows?
Because we have another 50 issues to fill out.
Sadly, oh god, it is another 50 fucking issues.
52 issues to go
52.
after this collection.
Yeah,
Oh my God. I hadn't put that in perspective until now.
yeah.
Um,
Like this event is a lot. Like honestly, the Night Quest is going to be hard. That's all
Night
I'm
Quest is gonna
saying.
be hell. I think we're gonna give a lot of those issues the showcase treatment.
Yeah. But yeah. So we also have
I mean, this is where the lead into 500 begins, because we
yeah.
have Azrael meeting Bane finally.
Yeah.
Um,
We have a great scene with Tim and his housekeeper. How Tim's really
oh
good
yeah,
at
yeah,
lying,
and you see just like how lonely he is.
and you feel so bad for him. Uh, and he sees the bat signals like, it's like Paul's made it pretty clear I'm not welcome as his partner. Well, that's tough. He didn't give me the job, so I love that Tim is making himself proactive. Um, but Bane breaks out his you know uh breaks out his partners,
Mhm.
and you see him just with a glass of wine and a bathrobe.
It's
Um,
it's he lives a luxurious life.
It does. Um,
Before Azrael comes in and the fight begins between the two of them.
and we
It's
can
some really
see
great stuff. You get some great
Azrael
live
with his
action material,
gloves of death just take out like Trog, Bird, and Zombie.
like
Um,
immediately. Um,
because again, this Azrael one has the super special brainwashing of Saint Dumas, which is again fascinating. I wish there was more to it, um, but also you need to strike that balance. Um,
mhm,
and Bane does get the upper hand, despite Azrael, having sort of created a new batsuit for himself, and
mhm,
the fight is taken outside, and we end the issue with Azrael, teetering over the edge,
mhm,
ready to go, and you think, oh, I've got to read the next issue. I've got to know what happens, and it's a great cliffhanger,
mhm.
because that moves us into Batman 500
Yes.
with
Which first off, what a way to reveal the cover. Reveal the new costume. Um, with him standing over Bane the same way with Bane over Batman in one of the earlier issues. It's a great parallel there.
yes,
Um,
again, Kelly Jones did the cover.
it's
Um,
so good. Bane with again just impossible amounts of muscles. It's
yes.
great.
So also, what's interesting is this is a double length.
Yes, and
So
as such has three artists on it.
yes,
uh,
luckily, they actually credit who's done what. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so Jim Aparo and Terry Austin did pencils and inks respectively for the first half, and then
Mhm.
Mike Manley did the art for the second half.
Yes.
And I do think their styles actually go together fairly well.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it's pretty seamless, I'd say.
especially considering Aparo's a hard artist to beat.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely,
and
definitely.
like you had like with the Lonely Place of Dying, where it was him and Perez. Like you need someone of a good caliber like George Perez to just to compete and make things mesh. Um,
Mhm.
but this is Dark Angel, which is such a '90s title. Um,
It's brilliant.
but yeah, we have Jean Paul Valley basically trying to defeat Bane. He lets himself fall and does a controlled fall so he can basically not be broken,
Hmm.
um, which Bane clearly hates and reacts to.
Hmm.
We're in like a mall, I think, like a giant mall, um, because then Bane does nothing but tries to run away, um, and basically gets himself lost in the crowd, which is difficult to do for an imposing figure uh like Bane.
Hmm.
And Azrael goes to find him. Tim then calls his girlfriend at the time because he's lonely. Um, and this is oddly enough, this is part of the build up to get to Robin number one, um, which
Oh,
explores
okay.
that relationship a little bit,
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
as well as really showing just how lonely Tim is.
Yeah.
Um, you see Bullock and Kitch, the detective he's been with. Have we mentioned Bullock's purple suit?
We have not, but it's glorious, isn't it?
Bullock's in this tacky purple suit that works so well.
Yeah.
And they're trying to double security. We have a lot of moving threads.
Hmm.
Like, and then we have Tim confronting Azrael.
Hmm.
Um,
And
and
once again, Azrael's just a little bitch. He sends Tim away and begins work on the next upgrade to his suit, which is just a whole new suit entirely.
a whole new
Uh,
suit, new armor. Basically, it's he wants to be all the '90s.
mhm.
Um, we
And he
find
has
out
every right to be.
that like the mayor is going to basically let Batman do whatever the fuck he wants because he still believes it's Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
Um, obviously he wouldn't obviously the mayor wouldn't realize Batman's different. Like so
Hmm.
neither would the general people of Gotham. My big thing is Gordon should know better because he's
Gordon should absolutely know. Yeah.
heck. Probably even Bullock and Montoya should know better. Um,
Right?
or
Like,
at
I
least
don't know.
Montoya, maybe not Bullock. Bullock's kind of a dumbass. Um, but yeah, we do have a very nice little scene between Gordon and Sarah where you know it's like Gordon realizes that he's different, doesn't quite put it together that it's a completely different person. Um, and then we have this great sequence of Azrael making the Batcave his own.
Mhm.
We find out first that Harold's gone.
Who is
Harold
again? Harold is here, and
Harold is here. I was like,
back to our Hush references.
I am I am so Harold actually shows up briefly in the preludes, and when I saw him, I'm like,
Yeah, I remember you
oh,
mentioning that to me. Yeah.
so he is a character. But I think more importantly, the goodest of boys,
Yes, absolutely.
Ace the Bat Hound,
Ace the Bad Hound is here.
realizes that this guy sucks. And it's a testament. This is still Jim Aparo to Jim Aparo. Just put so much emotion into into these 3 panels of this dog growling and walking away.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
it's so good. Um, and then also, surprise, surprise, Disco Suit Nightwing shows up.
Disco,
Um,
not quite Disco Suit Nightwing. It's
it's
evolved
it's a
Disco
slight
Suit
it's an
Nightwing.
evolved Disco Suit, but it's still the Disco Suit.
Look, I hate to say it, this version is inferior.
It is. It
Like
absolutely is. Yeah.
like
The only one that this one has going for it that the other one doesn't is the full on mullet here.
the mullet hair, and the mask looks slightly different. I might like the mask slightly more, um, but like it's more monochrome the
Hmm.
costume, and it doesn't actually have the disco slit.
And
Like
also, just look, the best thing that changing from the Disco Suit ever did is taking away fucking yellow. Nightwing should not be yellow, like ever. Like, why is it
you know what?
yellow?
I'll say the yellow works on the disco suit.
It's sorta.
It doesn't work here. Like
Yeah.
emblazoned. It's so 90s. But
But
I do
anyway,
love that Dick is like, he could have fucking asked me.
right? Like,
Like,
again, Bruce Wayne's horribly misguided decisions throughout this, where Dick is just like, yeah, I would have done it reluctantly, sure, but I would have done it. Like, oh my
um,
God, ridiculous.
and 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 Dick's just like basically, call me if you need me. Like, because I do like that it feels like Tim and Dick have an actual relationship,
Mhm.
which is great. It's carrying on from Lonely Place of Dying. You
Yeah,
know, it's clear Tim looks up to him, and it feels like Dick will be there when the inevitable help is needed, uh,
yeah,
which is good. We also find Bane has been losing his supply of venom.
yes. Which is a key point in the downfall of Bane towards the end of this.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, another thing that like can be debated that like okay, well, just as much as Bane could have cheated to win against Bruce, did he have an unfair disadvantage here? Eh, larger debate, I guess. Anyway, Tim sees the designs for the new bat suit, and we fully reveal it as we begin the second half of the of Batman 500, and it is a really nice suit. Like I don't know,
Yes.
it's very edgy, very 90s, but I think it works honestly.
I looked into who designed it initially. Joe
Like who?
Quesada
Oh,
did the design, I
I
believe.
did not know that.
Yeah. He also did a
Huh.
variant cover for 500 that
I
is
have not.
weird and
You
foil.
know, I've probably actually seen that to be
Yeah.
honest.
It doesn't look amazing because it's like got foil on it, and foil covers don't always translate great
Hmm.
in imaging.
Yeah.
But
Huh.
yeah, Casada designed the suit. Um, and honestly, this looks like a suit that's meant to sell action figures too. Um,
Yeah.
it is so over the top.
Oh, totally.
Again, Tim's reaction to it is, "You've got to be kidding." Um, and this back half of the issue really does focus. I think it pretty much focuses just all on Azrael versus Bane. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And as such, I don't think there's too much to talk about here. It's mostly inner monologue from Azrael and him
the
going to
idea I think is
confront
that like
Bane.
the system has taken over fully, so he's even more of a dick.
Hmm.
Um, we ask some questions of like, it's like, do do we try to kill the new Batman? We don't. Um, I like, I really, really like a lot of the action. I love the brutality.
Oh
of
yeah.
of Azrael here, because it's clear like this man took down the Batman, and we need to take this down, or else the city will be lost. Like it. This shouldn't be necessarily the ending of Azrael's story, because there is more to tell after
Oh,
this.
definitely.
Genuinely,
Not
um,
not
the,
600 pages worth of story, I think, but
correct.
you know,
Um,
it's what we have anyway. um anyway, but yeah, a really great fight scene. Bane gets his costume all ripped up, his mask breaks, and his venom supply runs low. He can't really like keep feeding it to himself. um yeah, just a really
and
great fight.
there's there's not a whole lot of clarity. Like at one point, he bursts into a train,
Mhm,
um, and Tim is the one who comes in basically to stop the collateral, um,
mhm,
and basically separate the train car from the rest of the train, and just keep everyone else, all the civilians safe.
mhm.
But like Bane runs out of venom and demands to be killed, and there's a moment of, is Jean Paul Valley going to kill Bane?
Yeah,
Like,
it's and especially at the time, that must have been a really interesting question because Bane was a brand new villain. You could just kill him off. But they chose not to. Because first off, you could do so much more with Bane as a character, absolutely. But
and because it does a great parallel to Breaking the Bat, whereas Azrael breaks Bane. Um,
yeah, Bane realizing that it would be a mercy to kill Bruce Wayne, Azrael realizes the same thing here with Bane. Um, and so he lets him go. And we get this moment of camaraderie between Tim
which
and Azrael,
which
which is played as triumphant, but it's drawn very sinister, I think.
it is. Because there is camaraderie between the characters in the prelude issues.
Hmm.
Tim tries to show him the ropes, but Tim also, like, Tim, your dad's missing, and this man has been pushing you out.
Hmm.
Like, the dialogue sounds triumphant while the art sounds kind of scared.
Yeah.
It's a great way to end the collection. Like,
Yeah. It's really great stuff. And I'm really
and
glad we covered that all in like 2.5 hours.
yes, it is.
Go us.
Go us, go
We're
us.
pretty great.
Yes, and it's a great ending.
Hmm.
Like it's like all in all, I only had a couple of like overall shot thoughts. Honestly, I think Bane is the perfect, like, for a story like this, perfect villain. They
Absolutely.
like Dixon hit gold, um, and just in what he came up with,
Hmm.
and I'm so glad Bane as a villain got to survive. And I think the takedown of Bane itself is great. Now, the fact that there are two more Omnis where I'm guessing Bane doesn't really appear.
Oh no, nowhere in the.
Though I believe in the Omni of Night's End there is the immediate follow up in a small story called Troika, which we will not be
Huh.
covering,
We will not.
which does include Bane.
Because again, one of the only reasons this episode is still only a little over 2.5 hours is that we are not covering all the extra prelude shit and other issues that are included in the omnibus.
Yeah,
So,
like for some of them I'll recommend them, but they're not necessary. They're often very good, but it's a matter of this event went
but
on.
hey, also, if those are unnecessary, then so is the entirety of next episode. So,
So we just skip a week and go right on to Night's End like they did in the mid '90s. Um, but yeah, I think just Bane's a perfect villain. I love the use of Tim Drake. Like
yeah.
I think at this point with this, Tim might be tied with Jason for my second favorite Robin.
Mm,
Like
interesting.
they're very
I'll
close.
be very curious to see when we do the updated character ranking when we hit our 2 year
Yes.
anniversary.
Yes. Again, it's taking into account what we've read. Um, like the one Robin I still think we definitely need to read more of is Damien,
Oh
because
yeah, and we will most definitely get
he's
there.
been kind of shafted, mainly because,
Hmm.
let's be honest, the Morris.
But I gotta be honest, I think a lot of the big reason why I included these three episodes initially in the first 50 episodes of the podcast in the schedule because like we had only really properly done like two Tim Drake stories before. And I want you to know this Robin, and we know the first two very well at this point.
Yes.
Um, I think we need to know more about Tim, and I think this first episode alone of Nightfall has done wonders for his character for you.
And I'm also just very glad that in Night Quest, a lot of the extra issues are like, or at least a lot of the early extra issues are extra issues of the Robin series.
And that's
So
good. Yeah, I'm
they
excited for you to
focus
read those.
directly on Tim, who's a great character who I think in recent years probably does get shafted a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, at least from what I know about current comics, which is
They're doing some really interesting things with him right now. In the main Chip Zdarsky stuff on Batman,
that's
which is pretty
good.
cool. Yeah. Oh,
And
definitely.
I've
Yeah.
heard, like, despite the art, the Tim Drake Robin series isn't. I've heard that it's not terrible.
I have not read it.
Yeah,
I personally don't have a lot of interest in it. But
I'm
no,
glad that it exists.
but I do really like that they're what they're doing with him in the current Chip Zdarsky stuff.
Yes.
And hell, I mean, one of my all-time favorite character arcs for Tim Drake was just a few years ago in Detective Comics. So,
Ooh. Is
uh,
that
the James Tynion
the
stuff.
James
Yep.
Tinney stuff,
Yeah.
which is a run I'd like to read. So much to read.
So much. Oh God, there's so much, and we have 27 issues to do next time. So
Yes.
let's talk Dark Knight Rises. So you
Yeah.
watched
So
Dark
we
Knight
watched Dark
Rises.
Knight Rises,
Now you had seen
which
it before, right?
I had seen it when it first came out on DVD.
On
Um,
DVD.
I believe actually it was New Year's Eve 2012.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
because I saw it with my family at my grandparents' house,
Nice.
and
And
I
also just a fun little story for those that have not been listening to the podcast from the beginning. It was the second Dark Knight trilogy movie you'd seen, right?
actually, it might have been the first.
Holy fuck.
I saw that trilogy all sorts of fucked up.
And the
Um,
last one you saw was The Dark
Dark
Knight.
Knight.
I cannot
Um,
believe it.
yeah. So I actually have a lot of thoughts. First off, so I already mentioned, it's not just adapting Nightfall. It's
No.
it's largely drawn from Nightfall and No Man's Land, and I'd argue a bit of Lonely Place of Dying influence. I did
Mm.
notice in the credits there wasn't a special thanks to section.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah,
That sucks.
I think they might have only started doing that around, like, probably Man of Steel,
Yeah,
if
like the
not
Zack
Batman v
Snyder of
Superman.
stuff. Yeah.
Which I'm glad we get it now, and I please DC films, please keep doing it. I know Gunn will, because
DC has always done such a great job with that. I mean, well, since then has done a really great job with that. Whereas I look through special thanks sections in Marvel films nowadays, and like they're there, but like DC thanks like every little person that ever contributed to a character that they're
yeah,
working on, and it's really special to see. I think so.
um, it's great. The film itself is actually pretty good. It's honestly
It's good. It's a little sloppy in places.
it's a bit sloppy. I do like that this is the first film where I think Nolan went balls to the wall comic book.
Oh,
Like,
definitely. I think the thing also, it's been speculated for many a year as to why, like, it feels a little bit disjointed with the rest of the trilogy. And I think it's because so much of the third one relied on the fact that they thought they'd have Joker still.
this is true. Um,
At the very least, we know he would have played some role in it.
he would have. I wouldn't have been surprised if he took, in the back half of the film, Scarecrow's role, at least a little
See,
bit.
that's the thing, though, is we also know that Scarecrow. One of the things that they wanted it was like Scarecrow was always meant to be in all three of them.
Oh, okay, so that's
Yeah,
even crazier. Now,
because Scarecrow is the only villain that appears in all three.
this is true. I I love the way the film starts with sort of the isolated Bruce Wayne. I I think Nolan was. I think Christian Bale was a bit of a coward in his statements that if he ever saw a Robin costume, he'd dip. Because
I
it's something
mean,
he's.
the only defense I can make of that is that he was the first live action Batman after George Clooney, and those films were seen as the way they were. For a lot of the reason was because they did Robin. But really, it's just that they did Robin poorly. And
and
but also, I don't think it's just a Christian Bale thing. I think also Nolan never really intended to do full on Batman and Robin,
which I think is genuinely a shame. But that's also because I think we need a live action Robin, and we have confirmed we are at least getting one in the new DC slate.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Probably two.
That said, though, on Bat Family things, how good is Anne Hathaway as Catwoman?
Anne Hathaway, I forgot how great her introductory scene was.
Oh my god, yeah, and that little music that Hans Zimmer writes for her, that leitmotif she has throughout the film.
I will say,
so
Rises might be, of the three, score-wise, my favorite. Like, I think Zimmer
I can see that actually. I think Dark Knight just edges it a little bit because just some of the high tension moments are really well scored in Dark Knight.
Yeah. It could also be recency. But on Hathaway's performance, I love how Hathaway is just by her presence can really lull you into that full sense of security.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think the relationship between her and Bruce is played perfectly.
Really and she does these ever so slight changes to her vocal delivery.
Totally.
And they're very subtle, but they're very well done.
Also, in our second Doctor Who reference for the episode, because you messaged it to me, and I was like, "Oh, that's right, yeah, Bern Gorman from Torchwood."
Bern Gorman's in this, and he's in it a lot. So I wouldn't have seen Torchwood when I first watched this, so I did not recognize him. But I'm like, God, he's good.
That's Owen Harper.
He's always good. I will say Tom Hardy as Bane is actually really a very good performance.
It's that Heath Ledger thing that I adore the performance as an original villain, but that is not the comic book character, you know?
It isn't. I think it gets perhaps closer, especially early on. At least in terms of intelligence.
Oh yeah, the way that he outsmarts Batman and all of Gotham for that matter, I think it's really well played. Yeah. But the fact that he ends up being the puppet in the end is
yes. However, we have the twist.
The
final twist is that the entire plot.
Look. If nothing else, it's an excuse to get back Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul, which I'm not complaining about. But my God, it's a stupid twist.
Yeah, the twist is that the current CEO of Wayne Enterprises is in fact Talia al Ghul, and it's through the entire film you're given Bane's backstory. Basically, I was born in the darkness, and you think, at the halfway point, if you haven't seen it, Bruce Wayne is thrown into this prison pit and has to rise with his body's broken and
which is probably the best plotline of the film.
Yeah,
I think.
It's a great plotline.
Yeah, but and having those visions of Liam Neeson there too, I think it works. But
it's great. It's great. But the twist is that the one child who escaped the pit was not Bane; it was Talia al Ghul.
And Bane is her protector.
Yeah. And there's this. So it also just isn't a great twist because there's this bomb that's leaking radiation it's going to go off, and when Bane takes over the city and basically steals this bomb from Wayne Enterprises, which was originally meant to be just a safe fuel source. He announces he's given the detector to one of you, and it's Talia who has the detonator.
Yeah, so Bane's whole thing about power to the people and all that is a complete fucking lie.
Is a lie. I wonder if the detonator was supposed to be given to the Joker or something.
That's very possible.
I mean, but
Joker chooses not to load up in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been great, wouldn't it?
It would have been really, really interesting.
And as far as staples of the Dark Knight trilogy go, Gary Oldman as Gordon is fucking perfect, as is Michael Caine as Alfred, who gives this fucking heart-wrenching performance.
That final scene, the final scene.
The I Failed You scene, that one. Oh, the dinner or the lunch or whatever it is.
The
Yeah.
lunch and the I failed you've seen. Like
Yeah.
they're both perfect. I'd also say I feel like I could have had to come up with a way to rewrite losing Heath Ledger if the twist came out of that.
Yeah.
And um and that's, maybe have the detonator just be a red herring.
Mm.
That yeah, he gave it, but the bomb's gonna go off anyways because it's been
Yeah.
leaking radiation for so long. Like
Hmm.
it would have been it would have been stronger, and it wouldn't have just undercut your villain.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know what the internet stance on it is now, but I remember for a while there was some debate about if Bruce actually made it out at the end. Um,
yes,
I think
I
he
think
did. The only thing is I just don't know how. I never figured that out.
yeah,
I mean, there's the whole thing about autopilot, but we literally see him in
yeah. I mean,
it.
I'd imagine the idea is he probably ejected at the last minute, and
Yeah. Yeah.
he's Batman, so he did it.
Yeah.
Because I honestly I feel like that final scene, people are reading ambiguity into something that ambiguity isn't there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. And I love the point of that scene is more the build up to it, where Bruce basically tells Gordon, that he's Batman. It's such a great scene. I adore that. And you know who I also really like in it? I really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Robin.
he's good in it. I just wish they would have committed a little more.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Um,
but whatever. I mean, I think the ending shows promise, and the idea is that like it's that very Batman idea of no matter what, Gotham will have a protector and all that, and
yes.
he'll probably
Um,
he'll probably be Nightwing or something. Who knows?
yeah. I part of me also just like I really really hope that sort of the Robin live action curse has been broken by now, and
We are about to find out, I assume.
yeah, we're
So
about to find out in
yeah.
two opportunities.
Yep.
Though we do basically know that we are getting another live action Dick Grayson in The Brave and the Bold, based on some things Gunn has said on Twitter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
on
So
eight on responding to an article of 8 characters who should appear in the new DC universe, and
oh,
Gunn has said 4 of them will.
so good. What a legend. Oh, I love James Gunn. Follow James Gunn on Twitter. I know I don't need to tell you that, but follow James Gunn on Twitter.
Or on whatever social media site he's on if you're not on Twitter, and Twitter is again dead by the time this comes out, because that's
Which brings us to
possible.
the end of our episode. So I will leave our link trees down in the description below. You can go check us out there. Any social media platforms that we're on, go do that. Um, the link to Nightfall will be down in the description as well. You can buy that on Amazon. I'll leave that link there. You can also buy Night Quest as well for our next time on the podcast. And
I'd
I don't know.
recommend at least reading Nightfall. Night Quest might surprise you. I don't know. I haven't really read it, so I can't say. Though
Yeah.
I'm
We'll get into that next
anticipating.
time. In the meantime, we have other things on the channel. We have Breaking Brian. I'm doing with my friend Brian. We have I'm watching Star Trek for the first time with my brother. You can check that out. That's been really fun. You can also go support my coffee. There's a thing on there if you want to. You can get my Star Trek videos a week early if you join the Star Trek Early Access tier on my coffee. So that's there if you want to do
Uh,
that.
as
And
always, wherever you're listening to this podcast, please leave us a rating. Um, Follow us. It helps our numbers
absolutely,
tremendously.
share the podcast around. It means a lot to us.
If you're watching on
Right?
YouTube, leave a like, comment, and subscribe as always.
Absolutely.
And
I'm gonna try. It's seeming less and less likely as the year goes on, but I'm gonna try to hit 1,000 subs on the channel this year. We'll see how that goes. But
I
who
mean,
knows?
I feel like it's not impossible yet.
Yeah, I feel like I can get pretty close though.
Yeah, I mean, you'll
We'll
hopefully
see.
you'll at least get 500
Yeah,
with
we'll see.
with
We'll
the way
see.
the growth is going.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been pretty decent recently at the time of recording, at least. Um,
yes,
but yeah, I guess that about does it. All right, be sure to join
yes.
us next time. Until then, this has been Joey Morgan.
And Jacob Licklider.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.